Good evening, everybody. Welcome to class 5 of 6 on salaries. So you are more than halfway through, and I hope you are understanding salaries computation. You are doing homework sums. You are able to approach it, even if you are not able to solve all the parts. And at least you know what you are trying to do, where this calculation of salary will fit in the overall scheme of things, how it will become a part of the total income on which any taxpayer has to, a salaried individual has to pay tax. Okay, so I hope that is, you're liking it and understanding it. So with that, let's see, let's, hear from all of you on the chat box. How many of you did homework solutions? So I'll show the homework. There were 4 sums. Homework 4, 5, 6, and illustration 12. So how many of you have attempted to do 4, 5, 7, and illustration 12? Yes, ma'am, tried. Able to do, not able to do. Good evening, have a doubt. Okay, have a doubt means you tried, that's okay. So if you have a doubt, that means you tried. And then we will obviously solve. Somebody is raising hand, but I don't think that feature is available. You can put it in the chat box and we will see. Yes, complete. Yes, complete. Very good. Okay. So let's quickly start with homework number 4. Okay, we have to cover important topics today. Remember, today's class is important because we are trying to target, completion of all concepts. Okay, so once we are through all the concepts, then in the next class, we'll be mostly only doing sums to revise whatever we have learned. In the next class, probably you will have no new concept to learn, only revision of all that you have learned. So we have, we are tight on the agenda today, actually the most under pressure today, because we have to conceptually be complete. Okay. All right. Homework number 4, you have already read that this is about perquisites. This was about accommodation taken on lease by X Limited. How much is recovered from the salary? Okay. So X Limited means it's a private employer and the employer doesn't own the accommodation. He has also taken it on lease, that you can see over here, and some part of it is recovered. So it's a concessional accommodation leased by private employer. Okay, that is the category that we have to look at. And then there is furniture which is also leased by X Limited employer because he's paying higher charges and no amount is recovered. So it's a completely rent-free furniture or movable asset being given to the employee. And then there's a car which is owned by the employer and given to employee for both official and personal use, and running maintenance expense also met by employer. Wow. Also given a chauffeur, that means driver. Very good. So there's a car of 1200 cc, that's less than 1600 cc. Okay, and that's owned and completely maintained, everything by the employer along with chauffeur. And then there is a gift voucher on birthday. Okay, great. So it doesn't seem like colleagues have given, it seems like the employer is only given. So we'll have to factor in the perquisite calculation. Okay, and then there is an assumption, assume his salary for perquisite valuation to be 10 lakhs. So you remember that the meaning of salary is different for different things, and RFA particularly is different from the others, right? So they have over here not try to pressurize you on the on calculation of salary. They have given you that please consider 10 lakhs to be the salary for RFA valuation. Okay, so fine, then that's okay, good. All right, so let's then approach the solution. Here only if we try to do this, then if you have a leased accommodation taken on concession, so Just a second. Just a second. Try to note down. I'm trying to fix the pen. In the meanwhile, just try to note down the value of accommodation at concessional rent. So if the lease rental paid by the employer is how much? The lease rental paid is 15,000 per month, so 1,80,000, right? Just try to plot that and find out 10% of salary, because you need to compare the lease rental with 10% of salary, and salary amount is given to you. Just try to compare the two and tell me the value of the total accommodation and reduce the value of rent recovered from the employee to find out the value of concessional accommodation. Do that. I'll just fix the pen till then. Tell me in the chat box how much of the value of concessional accommodation you're getting. Okay, how much are you getting in the chat box? Please show me. So 1 lakh recovered from employee 60,000. So taxable value is 40,000. Very good. I hope everybody has got. And now you need to add the furniture to this. So you remember that has also been taken on rent by the employer. So higher charges for furniture provided. How much is that? 3,000 per month. So 36,000 is the value of furniture. Right? 36,000 is the value of furniture. Right? Is everybody on that? So if 40,000 is the value of the accommodation, 36,000 is the value of furniture, then 76,000 is the value of the higher charges, right? And then let's do the perquisite value of Santro car. So if we have to take the car, then we know it is less than 1600 cc. So, but a chauffeur has been provided. So 1800 per month plus 900 per month, total 2700 per month into 12 should be the value in this case, right? Right? So that you have got. Then if you take the value of gift voucher, it's 10,000. And we know if anything more than 5,000 is given by the employer as gift, then the entire amount will be calculated in the perquisite valuation. You can give a note that it is possible to take an alternate view that only the excess, that means only the remaining 5,000 is taxable. But we are in our sums taking the full value as taxable. Even the institute is doing that in the thing. Perks means perquisite. It's just a casual way of calling perks, but the word really is perquisite. Okay, so I'll just quickly show the solution to you all. I hope it has been a very simple sum, so I hope you all have got it. Okay, say 40,000, you already told me the value of the accommodation, 36,000 for furniture, and 32,400 for the car, and 10,000 for the voucher. You've got the total perquisites at 118,400. I hope everybody has got. We are quickly moving to the next question. So if we move to the next question, then if you read the question for Rakhi, question number 5 in front of you, then Rakhi sum was about medical. That means on the medical point that there are a lot of things which are being given. Firstly, we talk about the reimbursement of following medical expenses incurred by Mrs. Rakhi. So we know that there are two types of perquisites, one cash and one non-cash, which means one where there is a personal obligation of the employee and then the employer is making that good. That's a cash obligation in the nature of perquisite. And one where the employer is providing the facility by himself. That is a second type of perquisite. So here you will have a mix of both so that they can test the kind of treatment you will apply. So firstly is the reimbursement. So suppose she is getting her self-employed daughter treated in a private clinic. Okay, so if it's a private clinic, it's not a government clinic, it's not a government hospital, government clinic or a facility maintained, owned by the employer or specified disease, those things are not there, then this amount should be a regular taxable perquisite. Okay, so I hope you have got that regular thing. Second, on treatment of herself by family doctor. So her own treatment by family doctor is also, not a specified disease, not in a government nursing home, not in a nursing home owned by the employer. So this should also be a taxable perquisite. Then the third thing is treatment of her mother-in-law dependent on her in a nursing home. So nursing home they've mentioned, but they've not mentioned it's a government nursing home or nursing home maintained by the employer. So again, dependent parent would have otherwise formed part of family, but here the very treatment is in a nursing home which is not covered. So this will also be taxable perquisite. Okay. Payment of premium on mediclaim policy taken for her health. So own mediclaim policy, employer is paying premium. Employer is paying premium on the medical policy taken for the employee specifically, not the group mediclaim. Taken for the employee specifically. So mediclaim, if medical insurance is being covered by the employer, then that is not a taxable perquisite. It is specifically exempt. Okay, it is specifically exempt. You must be remembering even in the salary definition for RFA, we were excluding medical premium because that is not a taxable perquisite if the employer is paying it. Okay. Then medical allowance. Medical allowance means regular allowance that you are being paid regardless of the amount spent. It is paid to you as a fixed component. So 2,000 per month, which means 24,000. There is no specific rule for any exemption. So wherever you come across something for which you have not studied any special exemption rules, then please make it taxable. So this will also become a taxable allowance. Then reimbursement of medical expenses on son's treatment in the government hospital. So if it's a government hospital, okay, and reimbursement is happening on son's treatment, son is part of family, son is child covered. So this regular thing is also tax-free. Ma'am, second point. Second point means you want 1B or you want point 2? What do you want? Yes, Tanu, this one is exempt. The medical treatment of son in government hospital is exempt. Yes. Point 2, you mean payment of premium on medical policy. So it's a mediclaim taken for the employee. Okay. For the employee's own personal health, there is a direct mediclaim taken covering her health. Regardless, it's not a corporate group mediclaim policy. It's a personal mediclaim policy, but employer is paying premium. Employer is providing this facility. So this is not a taxable perquisite specifically mentioned in the exemptions. I mean, it's in the list of tax-free perquisites. You remember we did 3 types of perquisites, category A, B, and C. This is part of D. This is a tax-free perquisite. Okay. If you go back and see that list, you'll remember. All right. Okay. Then we have expenditure on medical treatment of employee or family member outside India, including stay expenses. So medical treatment of employee or family member outside India, including stay, and we hope it is covered within the RBI limit because it's mentioned below that the limit allowed by RBI is USD 2,50,000 per financial year under LRS. We spoke about liberalized remittance scheme now. When they say limit allowed under RBI, it is under that scheme that it is allowed. Okay. Ma'am, do we need to remember? Not for direct tax, but in the sums, this is how they will tell you the limit specified by RBI. Okay. So it is USD 2,50,000 here. Okay. This amount they will give you in the sum. You don't have to remember that. So If USD 2,50,000 is allowed and this person is only spending 1,05,000 rupees, then definitely it is allowed, right? It is definitely allowed. And expenditure on travel of employee or family member and one attendant is also allowed. So travel expense is also allowed. If at least treatment and stay is exempt to the extent permitted by RBI, and travel is exempt if GTI is within 2 lakhs. Remember that treatment and stay used to be covered within one bracket. That is, we used to check whether the amount is within RBI specified limit. But travel used to be seen separately. And for that, the condition was that GTI, before adding this perquisite, is within 2 lakhs. Now, in this case, the GTI is within 2 lakhs or not? GTI is within 2 lakhs or not? Have they given in the sum? Rakhi is an employee. She receives following medical benefits. Not given. Not given. And the amount that we have, if we add all of that to find the taxable salary, the 4,000, 8,000, 5,000, 24,000 that you must have seen. So if we just calculate these amounts, then we don't get, at least that does not cross. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So if that does not cross, then let it be. Let's assume that the GTI is within 2 lakhs, and you give that note and you take this exempt. In case you are giving a note that this is GTI is above 2 lakhs, then you please take it as taxable. Whatever assumption you are giving, you give a note and accordingly treat the travel part, because stay and treatment depends on RBI limit, which is there in the sum, but travel is limited to travel is subject to GTI, which is not given in the sum. So you make an assumption and you accordingly solve it. Okay. I hope this is also clear. It was actually, nobody gets all these things together. Okay. It's just that it's a very hypothetical sum, just to test the medical bit. Okay. That's why I've given it a heading of medical. That a lot of medical treatments are there in the same sum. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So next we come to the next question. Next homework was given to you on a more comprehensive thing, that there were a lot of things, that is domestic servant, education, this and that. So were you able to solve, Bala? Yes. Good evening. I have a doubt. Car wholly owned. Car wholly owned housing loan was bit complicated. Okay, we will do one more sum on housing loan, then you will get to know. This sum only we'll be doing. Okay, then you'll get to know. All right. Chalo, the ones for whom it is not clear, let's do this sum. You will be able to understand. So I hope you've read the question. I'm moving the slide. Okay. So you've read the question about Sri Bala and the fact that, there's a domestic servant at the residence of Bala, and there's a salary of domestic servant. Okay, I had given you one acronym to remember, set me. How many of you remember set me? Set me was category C perquisites, which used to be taxable only for specified employees. Yes, for director employees or shareholder employee holding more than 20% voting power, beneficial owner, and GTI more than 50,000, salary more than 50,000. So specified employee only, and there were 5 such types. We had given them a very short name of set me. S was for servant or sweeper. E was for electricity. T was for tickets, concessional tickets, other than by railway and airline employer, because they are specifically exempt under category B perquisite. And then we did motor car, and then we did education. You remember set me? So can you see that there is education and there is domestic servant both over here? Okay. Does it mean that we need to really be careful whether this person is a specified employee? Yes. We need to be careful this person is a specified employee or not. What do you think? Is he a specified employee? Because they've not given that he's a director. They've not given he's a shareholder. Just that they've given too many salary components, and perhaps if you calculate the value, it may be more than 50,000. Right? Then accordingly, you can understand. All right, chalo, let's see. And then there is a gift voucher given by the company to all employees above certain grade. Still, it is given by the company. It's not given by the colleagues. If it was given by the colleagues, then there was no employer-employee relationship. Okay, then there is a telephone. And you know about telephone that it's a tax-free perquisite. Okay, it's category B. Telephone bill paid. And housing loans, there's a housing loan and somebody has a problem. So when we do this sum, you'll understand the housing loan. Okay, chalo. Let's see the solution. Okay, there is. All right. So first point was about the domestic servant. So as you know that it was here is a case where the domestic servant was not provided, but the reimbursement of salary of domestic servant was provided. And we did that while if a facility of domestic servant is provided, that means employer hires the servant and provides to the employee, then that is a category C perquisite taxable only for specified employees. But here is a case where you have a reimbursement of salary. So servant is hired by the employee and is being paid salary, and employer is reimbursing such salary. So reimbursement of salary is taxable for all categories of employees. Okay, here you don't need to see whether it is a specified employee. So the reimbursement amount was 1500 into 12. So this entire amount will be taxable. Look, there is a note also for your reference that if the company had employed the servant and given the facility, then it would have been taxable only in case of specified employee. Value would have been the same, right? This is only for your knowledge. You need not write this in the exam, because if they have clearly told you that it is a reimbursement of salary, then why will you say if that happened, then this would have happened? Why will you give all your knowledge? You only give how much is asked. Okay, this is for your information that this note is given. Okay, then about the educational institution. So here what has happened is that if the educational institution is owned by the employer, then you remember that for valuation of perquisite, we would have had to see that, you know, if there was a in the nearby locality, which similar institution is providing similar type of education in a nearby locality, then we would have taken the value of that education, the tuition fees or whatever it is, and we would have calculated the value of education facility provided by employer in that sense, right? You remember that we had said. So, but here is a case where and there also there was an exemption limit that, you know, up to 1000 per month per child. If the value of education is up to 1000 per month per child, then that will not be taxable, right? Over here, the cost of free education is over here, the cost of free education to Arthi is within 1000 per month, right? Cost of education to Arthi is within 1000 per month. So that is not taxable. Okay. But the cost of education for Ashok is more than 1000 per month. And what would be the value? It would be that you find out the nearby way, you know, thing, how much it should have been. So if that is 1200 per month, then that is more than 1000. So you take 1200 into 12, that is the value of education. Again, some people have a view that, you know, if it is exempt up to 1000 and the value actually is 1200, then you take only the excess, 200 per month. So that is an alternate view, but that is not the view that we are going to take. That is not the view that is even supported in your institute study material. So the view is, if something is more than 1000 per month, then the entire amount is taxable. In Arthi, it was 900 rupees per month. That is less than 1000 per month. Therefore, it is exempt. But in Ashok, it is 1200 per month. It is more than 1000 per month. Here, entire 1200 per month is going to be taxable, not just the excess of 200. Okay. Have you all understood that how we need to consider the threshold of 1000 per month? Okay. Next, there were some movable assets which were given to the employee. And over there, we did that, you know, 10% per annum of the cost of the asset owned, or the amount of higher charges in case the asset has been leased by the employer. That should be the value of perquisite. But this will not apply to laptop computers. We told them, you know, we jokingly said in the last class कि लैपटॉप कंप्यूटर अगर दिया है तो आपसे काम कराने के लिए ही दिया है, वो पर्सनल नहीं हो सकता. It's not a perquisite. How to remember that laptop computer, if given to you, cannot be perquisite? Just jokingly remember that if company has given you laptop or computer, it cannot be for gaming. It has to be for working for them. So there is no personal benefit associated with laptop. Okay. when you start working, you will understand it is not an asset at all for you. It is a liability, because the only thing you need to do with it is deliver to for your employer. Okay. So that is a joking, light way of remembering that laptops and computers cannot form perquisites. They will never be given to you for personal enjoyment. Okay. So even if they are actually given, this is just a way of remembering. Okay. All right. So laptop computer will not apply to that. But other than that, if there is a TV and there is a fridge and there is an AC given, then definitely you need to see 10% of the actual cost, or lease rental, whatever. If it is owned, then 10% of actual cost. If it is leased, then the amount of lease rental, that you need to check as value of perquisite. And in this case, it is owned, so we will take 10% of actual cost. We have been given actual cost at 1,10,000. So we just take 10% of that and we get 11,000. Okay. All right. Ma'am, in the sums, do we have to write these long answers? Not necessarily. You can write brief phrases also, like domestic servant provided reimbursement is taxable. That you need not write that. What if the domestic servant was only provided? Then it would have been taxable only for specified employee. This is for your information that I have given over here, so that later when you read, you will understand the logic of the solution. Okay, you don't have to write so much. Similarly, these many paragraphs you don't have to write. Cost of education, you say R3 less than 1,000 per month, so okay, nothing taxable. Ashok more than 1,000 per month, so entire amount taxable. Just this much also, if you write, it's enough. Okay. All right. Value of gift, we said that, if the gift is from employer at more than 5,000, the entire amount is taxable, so 10,000. Okay. Telephone, we have already done that. Telephone, if they give you, then this is also a tax-free perquisite. So I will jokingly add telephone to laptops. Okay, phone and laptop are not your assets, even if they are given by your employer. They will keep calling you to do some work. That's how you remember that phone and laptop are not for personal benefit. They will call you to give you work. Okay, so that's how you can remember these things are not These are not taxable perquisite, because they are not for personal benefit at all. Okay. All right. Then we did about the loan thing, and somebody had a problem. So let's go slow on the loan bit. Okay. How do you calculate? If we just quickly revise the concept for interest-free loan, that if there is an interest-free loan or a concessional loan, that means employer is not taking any interest from you, or employer is taking a lesser interest rate from you than what is available in the market. So basically, you're getting money at a discounted rate. You are getting interest-free or low interest loans from your employer. That is a benefit to you. So we need to find out the value of that benefit. Okay. This is not a category C to perquisite. It's taxable for all employees. Okay. All right. Okay. So over here in the question, they have given you that SBI, as on the first day of this previous year, in respect of the loan, has been charging how much? SBI per rate, they have said as 6%. 6% is the SBI rate in the question. So 6% is the SBI rate, and 10% is the SBI rate, and 6% the company is recovering from you. Then 4% is actually the benefit. But it will be calculated on what value? It will be calculated on maximum outstanding monthly balance. It will be calculated on maximum outstanding monthly balance. Okay, so let's just find out how much is the maximum outstanding monthly balance. See, April, this much, May, this much. Just keep plotting the maximum outstanding balance on the last day of the month. Just plot down maximum outstanding balance on the last day of the month. So you have plotted everything. Okay, now we have calculated 4% as perquisite value, because 10% is SBI rate and 6% is recovered from the employee. So only 4% is the benefit actually. So 4%, if you calculate on the maximum outstanding balance and then you add it up, it comes to 20,880. So total perquisites, if you add all of them above, the domestic servant and the telephone and everything, the AC, fridge, refrigerator, your gift and everything, if you add along with this interest on loan, the total perquisite value that you should be getting should be 74,280. Please tell me if you have got it. Okay. Actually, interest-free loan is a very simple adjustment, because rate is given to you, SBI rate will be given to you, and employer rate will be given to you. Difference will be the discount or perquisite value. And the balance is maximum monthly outstanding balance at the end of the month, which is very simple to calculate. You'll just have to plot this in a table like this and add it up. It's a very, very simple way of calculating this perquisite. And very logical also, na? Very logical. Because otherwise, if you just try to avoid taxes, if they had said just take the average, balance at the end of the year, what would people do? They would take a loan from their employer and just on 30th March, they would pay it off. So as on 31st March, there would be no balance and then you would not be able to calculate any perquisite. Okay, so lawmakers are smarter. They said, no, this is not going to be done. If you are, when we track the maximum outstanding balance at the end of the month, we will ensure that, you have to pay. You have to pay. You cannot do any cheating, right? So if you have used the benefit, some or the other month, I will be able to see it. And accordingly, you will have to pay interest on that. If I had calculated only on the balance on the last day of the year, then you would have done a cheating. You would have paid off the loan just on 30th March so that the balance is nil on 31st March. And then you would say that there is no perquisite, right? So they have, in order to avoid that kind of clever attitude of the taxpayer, they have introduced this monthly tracking mechanism. Okay. Ma'am, explain this chart. Ma'am, explain this chart. Okay. What is to be explained? 4%, are you clear? Or maximum outstanding balance, are you clear? Which one do you want me to explain? Maximum outstanding balance. Okay. So let's just look at the sum. Maximum outstanding balance. Amount outstanding on 1st April is 6 lakhs. And Bala is paying 12,000 per month towards principal on 5th of each month. Okay. So if the balance on, sorry. Oh God. If the balance on 1st April 2024 is 6 lakhs, okay, then on the last day of the month, on 30th April 2024, what can be the balance? If Mr. Bala has already paid 12,000 out of the principal amount of 6 lakhs, what would be the balance on 30th April 2024? Who will tell me? This is a more FM kind of sum than tax kind of sum. That's why I didn't make the interest table. Huh? What is the balance on 30th April 2024? 588,000. But there is an interest. But there is an interest. So at least the 30th April bit you are clear. Okay. Now for the May 2024. Again, he will be paying 12,000 per month out of the principal amount. But you have to calculate interest. ऐसे ही calculate करेंगे concessional loan के. हाँ, perquisite आप ऐसे ही calculate करेंगे. Perquisite calculate करना is not a big task here because you know the rate and you just apply on the maximum outstanding balance on the last day of the month. The bigger task here is to calculate the maximum outstanding balance itself. 30th April you have got because you just removed 12,000 as a repayment of principal. So the amount of principal outstanding is 5,88,000 now. Okay, 5,88,000 now. And out of 5,88,000, again on 5th of May, he's going to pay 12,000. So it's going to become 12 less करके क्या मिलेगा? 76. Assume that interest will be calculated at the end of the year, not monthly. Okay, because in the sum they have not mentioned interest is compounded monthly or something like that. They have not mentioned. So let's not calculate interest monthly, otherwise we would have had to add to the balance. Okay, so then you just have to reduce 12,000 from the principal balance and you will keep getting the maximum outstanding balance at the end of each month because you don't have to do any interest adjustment here. Okay, everybody clear on maximum outstanding balance? Yes? Okay, sure. Okay, there was an illustration 12 also. It's a long one. Huh? If I solve it in the class, it's going to take some time and we are already half an hour into this class. So I will start today's topic. And this illustration 12, you look at the solution. It's already uploaded on the portal. If you still have a doubt, you ask me in the next class. We'll solve it in the next class. But today, let's start for today. Okay? All right. Chalo, class 5. Now, perquisites, we have done most of the perquisites we have done. We've done RFA, we've done interest-free loan, and leave travel concession, medical facility. Okay, we've done so many things. Motor car, movable assets. We'll do one more good perquisite, which you find in a lot of sums. Equity shares. And I was told by you all in the last class that you already know what ESOP is. That how equity shares are given at concessional rate or discounted rate by the employer to the employees in recognition of their services. So you already know ESOPs. And because there's a discount element involved, that's why it is a perquisite. It's a taxable perquisite, and the law has laid down mechanism to calculate the taxable value. Okay, so we'll just do that. It's a very simple thing to do. Okay, and then we'll do contribution to funds. If employer contributes to various funds, then how do you factor it in the calculation of perquisite? We'll do that. Profits in lieu of salary as such is one of the terms. When we did meaning of salary, we felt there were 3 limbs. Okay, one was salary, one was perquisites, one was profits in lieu of salary. So this is the third limb of it, but it is more or less, things that you've already done as profits in lieu of salary, in the earlier classes. Here we'll just put them in a slide so that you can see them all together. Okay, and there is relief under section 89. This we will specifically calculate. This is the specific relief mechanism. We will calculate this. Okay. All right. This you must have read when you did VRS. You felt that, okay, this is mutually exclusive with VRS. Either you get VRS exemption or you will get 89 relief. So then what is that 89 relief? We will just see today. Okay. All right. Okay. Sweat equity shares. So what happens here? You all know already that if shares are issued at a discount or without any value at all to the employees, then that constitutes a taxable perquisite. Okay, so that is clear to you. But what you need to know is which year is it a taxable perquisite and what is the value? Which year is it a taxable perquisite and what is the value? Okay, so see, it is taxable in the year of exercise of option. The taxable event for ESOP happens in the year of exercise of option. So if you know ESOP, you must have seen a lot of things in the life cycle of an ESOP. That first an option is given to the employee. That is called grant of option. Whether you want to take the shares at a low price or you don't. Okay. So grant of option. Then the employee exercises the option. Okay, I want to take. You deduct so much from my payslip and give me the shares. Okay, that is exercise of option. Thereafter, there is allotment. The shares are actually given to the employee. Okay, mostly if it is demat form, then they are put into the demat account of the employee. Then there is a sale. The employee sells the shares and earns some profit on sale or profit or loss on sale of shares. So these are different events in the life cycle of a ESOP, right? Now, from an employee perspective, there are 2 times when actually a taxable event happens in his hands. One, when the employee exercises the option, because if the employee is given the option, suppose there's a grant of option, but employee is not interested, he doesn't want to take the shares, then will it automatically become a taxable event? No. Grant of an option is not a taxable event because actually nothing has happened financially. You have just given him a right to do something. Whether he wants to exercise or not, first ask him, right? So grant of an option is not a taxable event in the eyes of tax. Okay. But exercise of option means you have clearly give me discounted shares. If it is a discounted share, you please deduct so and so from my payslip and as a part purchase price, and you give me the shares. So this is already as if an order to buy shares. It's almost an order to buy shares, right? So here it is a taxable event because benefit has accrued to you. Today, employer will see on the date of exercise of option, what is the market value of the share? If I had sold to the market, what would have I got? But I am selling to Mr. X, my employee. What am I getting? The difference is actually the cost that I have to take to give him this benefit. This is the difference which the employee is enjoying as benefit and should be taxable as perquisite. Okay. So taxable event happens on the date of exercise of option, and it is on that date that you need to check the market value of the share, compare it with the value at which the employee is getting, and the difference is a perquisite. Okay. Second taxable event happens in the hands of employee when he sells the share and he earns capital gain. How do you do that? When you study capital gains, you will get to know it in detail. But I'm just saying that there are two taxable events for an employee in the context of ESOP. One when he exercises the option, and one when he sells the shares actually. When we talk about perquisite valuation, the only thing relevant to us is exercise of option. Okay, we do not bother about the capital gain when we are calculating salary calculation. Okay. All right. Now, how to find the value of the shares on the date of exercise of option? That is important for us. Okay. So there are a lot of options. Like you need to first see whether the shares are listed. If the shares are listed, then it's already there on the stock exchange. Now, do you need to appoint a valuer to find the value? It's already there on the stock exchange. So, ma'am, the share is now listed on NSE, BSE, CSE, and I don't know LSE and what all. Then what to do? Which exchange to take? Should I take the average of all? No. So, law has given you a rule. It's just a rule they have given you that if a share is traded in more than one recognized stock exchange in India, then take that exchange's price which records the highest volume of trading for this share on that date. Ma'am, you said so many things. So NSE is recording, BSE is recording, everybody is giving their quotation of fair value. And if you are an observer of the market, that they are all in the same range, but they are not the same values mostly. The values in BSE and NSE can be different. Okay. So, ma'am, what to take? In the question, they will give you NSE's on that date of exercise of option. NSE recorded so and so much of trading volume. BSE recorded so and so much of trading volume in that share. So, in the particular exchange where this share is more traded, more frequently traded, that will give you a fairer estimate of market value. Where the share is traded more frequently, that exchange will give you a better estimate of fair market value. Therefore, you take that exchange's value. Okay. So you have chosen the stock exchange. Now, ma'am, what price? There is a buy price, there is a sell price, there is an opening price, selling closing price. Ma'am, stock market has so many prices. Which one will we take? So you take the opening sell price and the closing sell price, and you take an average of the two. Okay. Opening sell price, closing sell price, average of the opening and closing sell price is actually the price from the exchange where the share is more frequently traded, in case it is available on more than one exchange. Okay. Second, ma'am, on that day, this share was not traded at all. Ma'am, that day it was a stock exchange holiday. Okay, the date on which the employee exercised the option, there was no trading in any stock exchange. It was a stock exchange holiday that day. So, ma'am, what to do? How to take value? Then you take on the last available date. Okay, it is the most easy. I mean, it's the easiest backup. If you do not have something on the date which I have told, then which date do you take? You just take the last available date. Okay, all right. In case of unlisted shares or other security, if it is unlisted, then you don't have any stock exchange value, then what do you do? So here law has said that, okay, you go to a merchant banker, he will determine the value as on that date. Okay. Ma'am, it is a private limited company. They don't value their shares like every day. They don't even prepare balance sheet every day. How to do? So law has said, okay, if you have a 6 months old balance sheet, if you found out the value 6 months prior to the date of exercise of option, then that value you can take. Okay. So 6 months, they have given you a time that you either take on the date of exercise of option, but if that is not available, then 6 months old report also you can take, but not before that. If you have an even older report, then you get valuation again. Okay. Okay. So these are simple rules. Okay. Listed shares, average of opening sell price, closing sell price on exchange in which it is more frequently traded on that date. And where it is not traded on that day, then you take the last available date. And if the shares are unlisted or any other security, then you take the value by merchant banker on that date. Or if you have a report, old report of 6 months, then 6 months old report, you up to that you can take. Below that you cannot take. Beyond that you need to take a fresh valuation back. Okay, beyond that वो expire हो गया है. Your products, your food products come with an expiry tag ना. Use within, best for use within 6 months. उसके बाद इसका कोई value नहीं है, right? The valuation report here also comes with that expiry. Use within 6 months. After that, this report has no value. After that, you need to buy the product again. After that, you need to take the valuation report again. Okay? Okay. All right. When such shares are sold later by the employee, then whatever value on which you have paid perquisite tax, that will become cost when you calculate capital gains. मैम ये तो नहीं समझ में आया. तो ये मेरे को आपको समझाना भी नहीं है, ये capital gains की class नहीं है. When you actually study capital gains, then you will understand. But just remember that the output of this question, perquisite calculation mein, the output of this question, this value of perquisite will form cost, will form input in the other head of income, which is capital gains. Output of this head will become input of the other head, which is capital gains. Just remember that. Okay? कैसे क्या होगा when you read capital gains, then you'll understand. Okay. Okay, and for an eligible startup, there is some, specific rule. Okay, specific rule for an eligible startup, because they understand that, eligible startups work in a little different way and they need a little different tax provisions to help them set up, to help them start working. So there are some, different rules. Just go through it before your exam, not that very frequent. Okay, in for exam purpose. All right. So that is sweat equity. We will quickly do this. Have we already done this? No? This we have already done. This illustration we have already done. This should be the illustration that you need to see. Right? Illustration 13. Huh. So AB Company Limited allotted 1,000 equity shares to Sri Chand in June 2024. And shares were allotted at 200 per share as against fair market value of 300 per share on the date of exercise. So they have already given you the value. You don't have to see, ma'am, listed ho to kya hoga, kaun sa exchange mein kya hoga, unlisted ho to kya hoga. Here they have given you the value. Very good, then take the value. Okay, and you take the value on the date of exercise of option. You know that. Fine. So if 1,000 shares have been given to you at 100 rupees discount, 300 the market value, you have been given at 200 rupees. So 100 rupees discount you got on every share. Okay, and 1,000 equity shares you got at a discount. So 100 into 1,000 should be the value of perquisite. Yes. And in the case of subsequent sale, what will happen? I told you, in output of perquisite chapter will become input of capital gains chapter. It will form cost when you sell, right? So what should be the answer? The first part answer should be 1 lakh, which is perquisite value. But the second part answer as to what will be the cost when you do capital gains, this is not relevant now, but later, at least, when you do all the heads of income, it may be relevant. So I have kept this sum also. Later, the cost when you sell the shares, it will be the fair market value. That means you bought it, you paid 200 per share. That is actually the cost in your hands. But you assumed 300 per share because you paid tax on another 100 rupees per share when you were calculating perquisite tax. Okay, so actually the cost that you suffered from tax perspective is 200, which you actually paid, and 100, which was deemed to be the benefit in your hands, and therefore 300 per share, the fair market value per share, becomes the cost when you calculate capital gains. In this case, 300 rupees into 1,000, 3 lakhs is actually the cost when you sell it when you sell those shares, the cost that you will get will be 3 lakhs. You all know now, when you sell an asset, you need 2 things. You need sale price and you need cost. And that's how you calculate profit or loss on sale of asset. This much we all know, even if we have not studied capital gains. That means what you sell, when you sell it, the sale price will be important. But what also will be important is cost. For cost, they are telling you that you not only include 200 per month, which you are actually paying. I am repeating. For cost, you not only include 200 per month, which you are actually paying, but also include 100 per month on which you are paying perquisite tax. So actually the cost for you is 300 per month per share, and 300 per share into number of shares should be the value of cost when you sell the shares later on. Okay. So when you do sale price minus cost to find capital gains, please take 3 lakh. Please take 300 rupees per share as cost in that case. Okay. Ma'am, this I didn't understand. So you don't need to understand. I just told you because it is a comprehensive sum. There is one element of capital gains also. This you will understand only after you have done capital gains. So it's okay. If you did not understand point number 2, mark over there CG. Okay. After you have studied CG, you will understand capital gains. Okay. All right. Let's come to the next perquisite, which is taxation of funds. So, okay, we have done sweat equity. Now we are moving to taxation of funds. Okay. I'm going to quickly show you how this taxation works. There is so much literature in your study material, and I have tried to compress it into one table. The different types of funds are plotted in different columns. The different types of components are plotted in the rows, and we are accordingly dealing with the taxability of each component in the case of each type of fund. Okay, ma'am, what is all this? That is what we are going to do. This is, again, you should tick mark it, you should print it, and you should keep it with you. Okay, this also will be very relevant to you when you are actually studying for exams, because it is the contribution to funds summarized in one table. This is also one of the cheat sheets. Okay, so you have one cheat sheet with meaning of salary. You have one cheat sheet with default versus new regime comparison. And this is also one cheat sheet about taxation of funds. Okay, this also you should tick it, print it, keep it. Okay, all right. Ma'am, what is happening here? Okay, recognized provident fund, RPF. Have you all heard about provident fund? That there is something called provident fund, employer contributes to provident fund, employees, out of employee salary also some part is deducted, they together contribute to some fund. There is a provident fund act also. Ma'am, your video is stuck. Is anybody else also facing a problem with my video? I am waving my hand, please check and tell me. So it's okay for all. Okay, fine. Okay. So employer's contribution to recognized provident fund. Now there is a provident fund act also, right? So if the employer is contributing, no, for what? You can't see the video, or there is no problem? Video is clear. Okay. 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 Employer is contributing to recognize provident fund for employees. So employer has created, it can be in case of recognized provident fund, what is the case? Employer has created a private fund. Private, that means he has opened a trust and he has created a fund, employees provident fund. If the company's name is ABC, employees provident fund. Okay. How has he got it recognized? What do you mean by recognized provident fund? So if you don't know, please write over here. RPF means recognized provident fund. Recognized provident fund. So how is it recognized? Employer has opened a provident fund, okay, to deposit provident fund amounts of all the employees, and they will get it later on. Okay, it's a kind of savings that employees are doing with the employer. The money doesn't remain with the employer's bank account. He puts it into a fund with an earmarked dedicated bank account that will be used to make provident fund reimbursements to the employees. So at no point of time can the employer use the money that he has put into a provident fund and he can use it for his own purpose. That's not going to happen. Okay, because it is an earmarked specific fund that he is setting aside some money, employee is setting aside some money, and later employee will get so much of the amount. Okay, later when the employee leaves, or when the employee gets transferred to another employer and the balance is also moved to another employer, then he will get some amount, And when he gets it, then what will be the taxability? So the fund that the employer has created, he goes to the income tax authority commissioner and says, please, this is the trust deed. Please read it. These are the rules under which I have made this fund. I will abide by this rule. I am a trustee. I am hereby signing that I will abide by these rules. I am making this fund for the benefit of my employees. The money that I will put here, whether it is my money or my employees' money, it will be completely safe. I am not going to touch it. I will not use it for any other purpose. And this will later be used for employee benefit only. So commissioner will read the trust deed. He'll say, okay, fine. Please abide by the rules. Give me a report every year that you are doing it. Okay, and fine, this is okay. Now, when the commissioner says it is okay, it is called recognized provident fund. Okay, so recognized provident fund is actually a provident fund created by the employer, which the income tax department okays that okay, this is okay and safe for use by you for the employees. Okay, that is called recognized provident fund. There are specific provisions in income tax to how to create a fund and how to approach the income tax department and how to get it recognized, etc. But that is not relevant right now. Okay, it is all this background is only to explain to you what is recognized provident fund. Okay, all right. Now, what is recognized provident fund may not be asked to you in the exam, even if you have not understood this. The treatment of the various components is only what will be asked to you. The background that I gave you was for you to understand what are you studying, okay? But not for exam purpose. All right. Now, how do you tax it? So again, there are many steps in the life cycle of a provident fund. Firstly, an employer will contribute. Every month, employer says that I will contribute 10,000 per month for Mr. X to the provident fund, okay? So employer contributes. He tells employee, you also have to contribute so much. So you also, I will deduct from your payslip so much of amount and I will contribute on your behalf to this fund. Employee says, okay, do it. So there is an employee contribution to the fund. Then if that fund is the employer will not keep the money idle. It's a waste of money then. He will invest the fund somewhere, but for the dedicated purpose of the employees, that whatever money grows, it will be used for employees only. Employer will not benefit out of it. But why to leave the money idle? He will invest it somewhere. Okay. So there'll be some interest that he will earn. Interest will be earned on the contribution that he has put. Interest will also be earned on the contribution that employees have put. Okay. Because all the money will together be invested. Why do we separate employers and employees contribution even after being pooled? Because the taxability is different. So we have to segregate. Okay. Then the employee will say on a certain event, I am withdrawing this amount. I need my fund. I am withdrawing the amount. So that will also be an event where we need to judge the taxability. Okay. So, and then annually some amount will keep adding up to the employer's contribution. That will also be an amount that we'll have to see. So let's first do the employer's contribution. From exam perspective, recognized provident fund is most popular. Okay, because it is generally private employers would be doing this, so it's very popular. Okay. So employer's contribution, how is it taxable? Every month when employer contributes something to the fund for the employee, for Mr. X, he will do for Mr. X, Mr. Y, this, that, he'll do for everybody. But let's just see from one employee's perspective. So for Mr. X, if employer contributes something every month, how do we tax it? The taxable amount is whatever is in excess of 12% of salary, whatever is in excess of 12%, okay, that is taxable, or excess of 12% of salary, or 7.5 lakh per annum. Whatever contribution is in excess of these two limits, that is taxable. So up to 12% of salary or up to 7.5 lakhs per annum, it is not taxable. What is salary? What is salary? I have given you my cheat sheet. And in that cheat sheet, recognized provident fund was also one of the rows. At that point of time, I told you, you will not understand it now. You will understand after a few classes. What is the meaning of salary for calculation of taxable value of contribution to recognized provident fund? If somebody has read the cheat sheet properly, there were 3 categories of definition. One, in the context of gratuity for some person, for the person who was covered under the Payment of Gratuity Act. And there I told you that salary meaning is aligned to the Payment of Gratuity Act, which is meaning is same as that was there. That means basic plus DA. Then there was one definition of RFA where salary was all the cash components and excluding non-monetary purposes, excluding medical insurance premium, contribution to Provident Fund, yes, and terminal benefits, right? But bonus was included, commission was included, everything was otherwise included in RFA salary. Okay, and then there was a bigger, I mean, for more number of instruments, whether it was for leave encashment or for other HRA or for recognized provident fund, the meaning of salary, or for gratuity when the person was not covered under Payment of Gratuity Act, then the meaning of salary was defined as basic plus DA forming part plus commission based as fixed percentage of turnover. Do you all remember My Life, My Rules? Do you all remember that if you leave it to income tax, they will define salary in their own way? And for them, their convenient definition is basic plus DA forming part plus commission based as fixed percentage of turnover. Okay, so that is the meaning of salary. Now, if the contribution is more than 12% of that, then that excess only, not the entire amount. So far, I have been telling you that if the gift is more than 5,000, entire amount should be taxable. If the education facility is more than 1,000 per month per child, entire amount should be taxable. Yes, but for allowances, you allow the exemption limit. Only the extra you used to take. Children education allowance only more than 100 rupees per month. The hostel allowance only more than 300 rupees per month. Only the excess you will take for them. Similarly, here in employer's contribution, only the excess you will take. Don't take the entire amount. Okay, only the excess to be taken. So excess of 12% you will consider 12% in terms of the amount percentage of salary as defined to you, or 7.5 lakhs in absolute terms, whichever is higher. Okay, whichever is higher, I mean excess of the contribution, not whichever is higher. You compare the contribution with both these limits, whether it is within 12% of salary limit or whether it is within 7.5 lakhs per annum. If it is more than any of them, then you need to pay tax on the excess. Okay, that is how you calculate taxable value of employer's contribution to recognized provident fund. And what about unrecognized provident fund? That means you went to the commissioner and commissioner said, no, I don't like the trust deed. I think there is a gap. What if you use the money for personal purpose? I don't like this trust deed. I will not approve it. Then that becomes unrecognized provident fund. Or if the employer did not go to the commissioner at all, that can also be unrecognized provident fund. Okay, so wherever the income tax department has not okayed it, that becomes unrecognized provident fund. And in that case, employer's contribution is not taxable at the time of contribution. Okay, employers the taxable, nothing, they will not leave anything. Only the taxable event timing changes. In case of unrecognized provident fund, unrecognized superannuation fund, okay, unrecognized provident fund or superannuation fund means pension fund. Okay, so it is not taxable. Employer's contribution is not taxable at the time of contribution. It is going to be taxed, but later. Let me do the full chart, you will understand when. Okay, all right. And ma'am, what about statutory provident fund? Statutory provident fund is what is created by the statute under Provident Fund Act. Okay, so it is statutory provident fund created under Provident Fund Act. So for that, employer's contribution is fully exempt. Okay, while recognized provident fund is actually a private fund with income tax approval, statutory provident fund is a fund formed under the Act. So therefore, it is statutory and employer's contribution is fully exempt. Okay, and what about public provident fund? In case of public provident fund, there is no facility for the employer to contribute. Employee has to contribute himself, or self-employed person has to contribute himself. So this leg is not applicable. There is no employer's contribution on public provident fund. Okay. And ma'am, what about approved superannuation fund? Approved superannuation fund is similar to recognized provident fund. It is a kind of pension fund which the employer took privately set up and took it to the commissioner. Please, sir, approve it. He saw the trust deed. He said, okay, fine. Let's approve. Terms are similar. That way, whenever you take employees' money, don't play around with it. It should be absolutely safe. Okay. And it should be kept in an earmarked bank account, and you cannot use it for your personal purpose. So with all that, if given in the rules, if the trust deed and the commissioner of income tax says, okay, fine, this is okay, then he will approve it. So that will again become approved superannuation fund. The nature is very similar to recognized provident fund. Okay. What happens to employer's contribution? The limit of 7.5 lakhs is same, that anything more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, if employer is contributing, that will be taxable. Here, there is no need to check 12% of salary. Okay, that 12% of salary check is only for recognized provident fund. Everybody clear on employer's contribution to recognized provident fund, unrecognized provident and superannuation fund, statutory provident fund, public provident fund, and approved superannuation fund? Everybody clear on that? The first row, we have done the first row. We have done different types of funds, and we have done the taxability of employers' contribution to different types of funds. Yes? Okay? All right. Now, what can be another component? As we discussed, another component can be employees' contribution. That employee has said, okay, every month you deduct so and so amount from my salary and you deposit it to the provident fund. You must have heard ना यार, in hand cash तो मिलता ही नहीं. सैलरी मिलती है, इतना टीडीएस कट जाता है, इतना पीएफ कट जाता है, हाथ में तो इतना ही आता है, राइट? इन हैंड कैश कम क्यों हो जाता है इन केस ऑफ सैलरी? सीटीसी तो इतना होता है, जब कैश में हाथ, जब मंथ एंड में हाथ में आता है मनी, तो इतना कम क्यों हो जाता है, राइट? So if you must have heard that, why it happens? Because TDS is deducted, tax is deducted at source and paid to the government. Okay, then provident fund contribution is deducted. So employer's contribution is part of CTC that you never get to see. It directly goes to provident fund. Even your contribution to CTC, to provident fund, you don't get to see. It is deducted in your payslip and the net amount you get. So if so many deduct, then P-tax deduct हो जाता है. इतना कुछ deduct हो के आएगा तो फिर क्या हाथ में आएगा? That's why people say in hand cash तो बहुत कम आता है. Right? So that is the employee's contribution, which is your contribution to provident fund, your own money. Okay, you will get it. But you only want, you said, okay, you deduct and you deposit it over there. It will be a part of my investment. And later when I retire, I will get a lump sum amount. So I will use it properly. Okay. All right. Now, what happens to employees' contribution? मैम, आपने एम्प्लॉइज कंट्रीब्यूशन में तो टैक्सेबिलिटी डिस्कस ही नहीं किया है. यहाँ तो कुछ और ही बात हो रही है. डिडक्शन मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा, डिडक्शन मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा, ये हो रहा है. टैक्सेबल होगा कि नहीं, ये तो कुछ बोल ही नहीं रहे हो. Employees contribution की taxability we are not discussing. And if I could give you a chocolate online, I would have given to the person who can say logically why employees contribution is not taxable. Absolutely correct. First answer, absolutely correct. It is an application of your tax paid income. You calculated taxable salary in so many sums, है ना? Did you give a deduction for employees contribution? It is already included in your taxable salary. It is just that when you get the salary in your bank account, you will not see one part of the money because it will go into the PF, just like one part will go into TDS, right? It is already your tax paid salary. Why will you pay tax again? It is application of income. Why will you pay tax again on that? It is a tax paid income which you are just not getting in hand. Yes? Okay. So, then why are we discussing? Because we will discuss deductions. In some cases, you get deduction of this. Okay. 80C. Has anybody heard of 80C? Has anybody heard of 80C? सुना होगा, भले ही आपने चैप्टर 6 से पढ़ा है या नहीं पढ़ा है. आपने वर्किंग नॉलेज में सुना होगा 80C मिलता है सबको, 1.5 लाख का 80C मिलता है. क्या है भाई 80C? So when you read the overall scheme of things, that there is a GTA, you calculate gross total income after adding all the 5 heads of income, you calculate gross total income. Then you give some deductions under chapter 6A, out of which 180C is 1. Then you arrive at total income. Okay. So gross total income minus deductions under chapter 6A is total income. And 80C is one such deduction, one such example of deduction under chapter 6A. Ma'am, wo to kuch pata hi nahi, we have not studied that. You will understand when you study. For now, you just understand this is one of the reductions that is allowed from gross total income to arrive at total income. And it is actually total income, which is the taxable income on which you will pay tax. Okay. So, 80C आपको old regime माने optional regime में 80C deduction you will get on employees contribution to RPF, but new regime, that means default regime में no deduction under 80C. Okay. In case of unrecognized provident fund and superannuation fund, there is no deduction at all for employees contribution. Okay, because they don't like this unrecognized fund too much. Okay, income tax department doesn't like it too much. Anything, I mean, if you are at all dealing with taxability of unrecognized provident fund, please remember it will always be harsher than recognized provident fund, because in recognized made the effort that he drew up a trust deed, he went to the commissioner and he said, sir, I will follow so many rules, please approve my provident fund. And commissioner said, okay, I trust you and I'm approving it, please give me a record every year of what you are doing with the money. Okay, so you went through such a rigorous approval process. Okay, that means they are checking what you are doing with the money, therefore they give you a little more leeway or little more relaxation in taxation. But unrecognized fund, you either never came to the commissioner or you did not get the approval, it got rejected. Okay, so that means they don't like you, na? For some reason, you did not come for approval or your file was rejected. That means they did not find things proper. There is some or the other fault which the commissioner is not okay with. You may not be using the money properly. So they will always be harsher on the treatment of unrecognized funds. If they were supposed to be harsh, why did they say that employer's contribution is not taxable? I didn't say employer's contribution is not taxable to unrecognized fund. I just said it is not taxable at the time of contribution. You wait now, it's all going to be taxable, but later. Okay. And employees contribution, there is absolutely no deduction even under optional regime in case of unrecognized provident fund, because income tax department doesn't like unrecognized funds and therefore does not give too much of exemptions to them. Okay. Next, statutory provident fund is also similar to recognized provident fund. Employees contribution, you can get 80C deduction under optional regime, no deduction under default regime. Similar for public provident fund and similar for approved provident superannuation fund. So ma'am, then what is the difference? The odd one out is only the outlier is unrecognized provident fund, where even under optional regime you will not get any deduction. Types of funds, employees contribution is eligible for 80C deduction up to defined statutory limit under optional regime, but no deduction at all under default regime. Okay, then what happens? So employer has contributed his money, employee has contributed his money. Now employer has put all that money from the trust where the amount is there into some investment, and they are earning money, interest on that investment. Okay, so what happens to interest on employer's contribution? Any interest earned on employer's contribution in excess of 9.5% per annum, ma'am, ये याद करना पड़ेगा क्या? Yes. So आपको इंटरेस्ट फ्री लोन में तो SBI का रेट क्या है वो दे देते हैं, क्योंकि भाई वो तो हर साल चेंज भी होता है, लेकिन इंटरेस्ट ऑन एम्प्लॉयर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन में टैक्स फ्री रेट मतलब टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन लिमिट 9.5% पर एनम का ही है, उसके ऊपर एक्सेस 9.5% per annum will be taxable in the hands of the employee. Okay. In case of unrecognized provident fund, again interest पे कुछ नहीं होगा. Not now. Unrecognized funds का taxability triggers when you withdraw the money. एक बार में. Okay. Not at the time of contribution or at the time of interest accretion. Okay. It doesn't accrue at that time. All right, 9.5% तक exempt होगा. Any interest above that will be taxable. Extra amount 10.5% है तो फिर 1% taxable होगा. Okay. अच्छा, interest on statutory provident fund, interest on employer's contribution in case of statutory provident fund is fully exempt. Okay. स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविडेंट फंड इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट को आरपीएफ से भी ज्यादा अच्छा लगता है. क्यों? क्योंकि आरपीएफ एक प्राइवेट फंड है जिसको कमिश्नर ने देखा तो है, इसलिए अनरिकॉग्नाइज्ड प्रोविडेंट फंड से ज्यादा अच्छा लगता है. कोई एक्ट में नहीं बना है, वो उतना रेगुलेटेड नहीं है जितना स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविडेंट फंड है जो कि एक्ट में बना है. इसलिए स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविडेंट फंड दे लाइक अ लिटिल मोर. If the income tax department likes statutory provident fund a little more, then they will give you more exemptions. Okay, whatever instruments they like, they will give you better tax treatments. Okay, so SPF treatment will be better than RPF. RPF treatment will be better than URPF. ठीक है ना? Okay, so SPF they like a little more because it is very regulated. ये तो statutory है. तो यहाँ पे interest on employer's contribution is fully exempt. कोई 9.5% का लिमिट ही नहीं है. जब कंट्रीब्यूशन ही फुल्ली एग्जेम्प्ट था, कोई 12% का लिमिट नहीं था, तो इंटरेस्ट क्या चीज है, वो भी फुल्ली एग्जेम्प्ट, नो लिमिट ऑफ 9.5%. ओके. और पब्लिक प्रोविडेंट फंड में आई टोल्ड यू एम्प्लॉयर कैन नॉट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट, तो वो एप्लीकेबल. सुपर एनुएशन फंड में अगर इंटरेस्ट आता है एम्प्लॉयर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन के ऊपर तो वो एग्जेम्प्ट है. ओके, तो वो एग्जेम्प्ट है. इधर 9.5% का कोई लिमिट नहीं है. ओके, ये जो परसेंटेज लिमिट्स होते हैं ना, 12% ऑफ सैलरी, 9.5% ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, ये सब आपको मिलेंगे. 9.5% ऑफ कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, ये सब आपको मिलेंगे आरपीएफ में. ये परसेंटेज लिमिट्स और कोई टाइप के फंड में नहीं. ठीक है. ओके. देन अगर और एक चीज आरपीएफ में, एक तो है 9.5% का लिमिट जो आपको देखना है, एक है कि इन एब्सोल्यूट टर्म्स what if the employee's contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum? Okay, so it was changed some years back in 2021, but for you now that is history. So if the employee's contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum in absolute terms, then that interest is also taxed. Okay, so interest, if employee's contribution, the limit is not on interest, the limit is on employee's contribution. If employee's contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, then interest is taxable. And also, if the interest in percentage terms is more than 9.5% of contribution, then the extra is also taxable. Just like when we're talking about the employer's contribution, the excess of 12% of salary, any contribution more than 12% of salary is taxable, or any salary more than 7.5 lakhs per annum in absolute terms is taxable. Similarly, when it comes to interest on employer's contribution, any interest more than 9.5% of contribution is taxable, or any interest if employee's contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, then that interest is also taxable. मैम ये सब इतना कैसे? तो आप जब सम्स करेंगे right after this, you will be able to remember. And I have told you, more popular item in the exams is RPF. Sums point of view say RPF is very popular. Okay. All right. And interest on employees' contribution to Baki funds, you have to unrecognized provident fund, that is not taxable. Okay. So interest on employees' contribution to unrecognized funds is not taxable now. So statutory provident fund is taxable if employees' contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum. So ये जो change आया था, that came not only to RPF but also to SPF in terms of interest on employees' contribution. Okay. Public provident fund is fully exempt, and approved superannuation fund interest is fully exempt. Ma'am, employer contribution once more. Employer contribution once more, या फिर interest on employer contribution once more in RPF? बताओ. Employer contribution once more. देखो, you have understood what an RPF is. So, employer made a private fund. He took it to the Commissioner of Income Tax, said, please approve it. Na? This is my trust deed. I have given all the rules over here. that I am going to follow these rules. This money is specifically for my employees. I will very safely deposit it in safe instruments, and the money will be used for the benefit of employees. I will not touch it. I will not use it for my business or any other use. Okay. Commissioner says, okay, fine. I am approving it. This becomes recognized provident fund. Recognized by whom? In the eyes of tax, in the eyes of the commissioner. It is recognized. So it is recognized provident fund. Now, what is the taxability of employer's contribution? Any contribution more than 12% of salary or more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, excess over 12% of salary or excess over 7.5 lakhs per annum is taxable as employer's contribution to recognized provident fund. Clear? Clear? That means आपको percentage terms and absolute terms दोनों को ध्यान में रखना है. Yes. Any one condition, if it is triggered, you will have to offer it to tax. Any one condition is triggered. Suppose percentage terms में तो 10% of salary है, लेकिन absolute terms में 10 lakhs per annum है, क्योंकि you don't know ना किसकी salary कितनी है, how it works out you don't know. तो किसी में percentage trigger हो जाता है कि relatively to the salary ये थोड़ा ज्यादा बड़ा component है, किसी में वैल्यू ट्रिगर हो जाता है कि भाई रिलेटिवली तो सैलरी की वैल्यू इतनी ज्यादा है कि 10% ऑफ सैलरी 12% ऑफ सैलरी से तो कम है, बट एब्सोल्यूट टर्म्स में 7.5 लाख से ज्यादा हो गया. तो रिलेटिव टर्म्स में या एब्सोल्यूट टर्म्स में कोई भी टर्म्स में अगर ज्यादा, एंड द एक्सेस इज ओनली टैक्सेबल, नॉट द एंटायर अमाउंट. गॉट इट? चलो, ओके. नाउ वी कम टू interest on employees contribution. We were dealing that RPF and SPF same है, मतलब excess if the employees contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, तो interest taxable हो जाता है RPF में भी SPF में भी. और RPF में एक और लिमिट आपको देखना है, वो कि interest 9.5% per annum of contribution से ज्यादा है कि नहीं. So ये 9.5% employer और employee contribution interest दोनों के लिए देखना है, और 12% एम्प्लॉयर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन के लिए देखना था. ये परसेंटेज लिमिट सिर्फ आरपीएफ में है, दे आर नॉट देयर इन द अदर फंड्स. ओके. एंड व्हाट अबाउट एम्प्लॉयज इंटरेस्ट ऑन एम्प्लॉयज कंट्रीब्यूशन टू पीपीएफ? फुल्ली एग्जेम्प्ट. सी, पीपीएफ एक अलग ही दुनिया में बना हुआ स्कीम है. पीपीएफ इज सपोज्ड टू बी ईईई. हैव यू एनीबॉडी हैज हर्ड ऑफ ईईई? Anybody has heard of EEE? No. No problem. EEE is exempt, exempt, exempt. Okay. You must have watched, you must have seen a movie. हमें 3 चीजें पसंद है, entertainment, entertainment और entertainment, right? Tax में E is not entertainment. Tax में E is exempt, exempt, exempt. ओके. पीपीएफ को 3 चीजें पसंद है, exempt, exempt, exempt. इसका क्या मतलब होता है ईईई मॉडल में? मतलब आप जब कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं तब exempt होता है, जब उससे इंटरेस्ट मिलता है तब exempt होता है, जब वो पैसे को मैच्योरिटी पे आप विड्रॉ करते हैं तब भी exempt होता है. नहीं है, इसीलिए इसको exempt, exempt, exempt बोलते हैं. ऐसे बहुत कम इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स हैं जो हर लेग में exempt हो, and public provident fund is one such instrument. It is immensely popular among the public. Everybody does 1.5 lakhs of PPF every year. मतलब जो कर सकते हैं वो करते हैं, because it's such a beautiful tax saving scheme, right? Okay. इसीलिए PPF आपको नहीं भी याद हो तो आप बस मतलब वो हमेशा exempt है, वैसे याद रख लेना. ठीक है. एम्प्लॉयर का कंट्रीब्यूशन होता ही नहीं है पीपीएफ में, तो इंटरेस्ट ऑन एम्प्लॉयर कंट्रीब्यूशन एप्लीकेबल ही नहीं है. बट एम्प्लॉइज कंट्रीब्यूशन को 80C मिल सकता है अंडर ऑप्शनल रेजिम, नहीं मिलेगा अंडर डिफॉल्ट रेजिम. ओके. और अमाउंट जब मैच्योरिटी पे विड्रॉ करते हैं और इंटरेस्ट ऑन एम्प्लॉइज कंट्रीब्यूशन आए तो वो भी एग्जेम्प्ट है, और मैच्योरिटी पे अमाउंट उठाएंगे तो भी एग्जेम्प्ट है. कभी टैक्स है ही नहीं पीपीएफ में. ओके. चलो, ओके. तो अभी आपको कोई पूछेगा कि एंटरटेनमेंट एंटरटेनमेंट एंटरटेनमेंट, तो आप बोलेंगे नहीं, एग्जेम्पशन एग्जेम्पशन एग्जेम्पशन. दैट इज ट्रिपल ई फॉर यू. ओके. आरपीएफ और पीपीएफ में क्या डिफरेंस होता है? पब्लिक प्रोविडेंट फंड भी एक गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का फंड है, ठीक है, वो हर कोई नहीं बना के रखता है, इट्स अ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया फंड. And RPF is actually a private fund. It is just approved by income tax commissioner and therefore called recognized. Actually, it is private fund. हर employer अपना RPF बना सकता है, ओके, पर एक ही PPF होता है गवर्नमेंट का. SPF is applicable for whom? Generally government employees, क्योंकि वो भी स्टैट्यूट में बनाया हुआ फंड है, तो generally government employees use it. These private organizations can also contribute their money to that fund. But from a regulation perspective, from a little more control on the money perspective, they like to have a private fund and get it approved from the commissioner, and they like to contribute to RPF. So RPF is very popular among private employers. ठीक है? These are all commercial knowledge that I am giving you. Exam में ये नहीं पूछेगा, but आपको पता होना चाहिए आप क्या पढ़ते हैं. इसलिए this is the commercial knowledge that I am giving you. Okay. All right. ठीक है, where were we? Interest on employees contribution. We did about SPF and RPF, how they are similar, and then we did URPF is not taxable now. Public provident fund तो हर लेग में exempt है, कहीं कुछ सोचना ही नहीं है. और approved superannuation fund भी exempt है. Approved superannuation fund भी काफी liberal है. Okay, it's only that the employer's contribution is taxable in excess of 7.5 lakhs per annum. मैम वॉइस बीच बीच में अभी ठीक है? वॉइस हेलो, आर यू बीइंग एबल टू हियर? बीच बीच में रैंडमली कट जाता है. ठीक है, but you can see my video, so if you feel that I am talking but you are not able to hear, then prompt. Okay, all right. Voice is breaking. अभी भी breaking कि you are able to hear clearly? लिप रीडिंग करना पड़ रहा है. अरे क्लियर, somebody saying clear, somebody saying problem. Now okay, चलो ठीक है, now okay ना, तो जब तक okay है तब तक सुन लो. So next point is amount withdrawn on termination. Amount withdrawn on termination means maturity pay. Ma'am, all these perquisite valuation exemptions etc. they what they are, they will not ask as theory na. No. Nobody will give you a 16 marks question. Please write down all the taxable components of salary that you know along with their treatments. Abhi tak they have not asked this kind of a question. So you will get sums where you will get different components and you will have to deal with the treatment. Abhi tak aapne kitne sums kiye hai na, जिसमें 1 2 3 4 4 components मिला, 4 का treatment किया, वैसे ही 5 6 7 जैसे जैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे you will get more comprehensive sums. हाँ, okay. So amount withdrawn and termination means that a certain event triggered and you said I want to take my money. Okay, I want to take all my money from the fund. So if I want to take all my money from the fund, then it is in case of RPF exempt if the money taken on termination is exempt if there is 5 plus continuous years of service. Okay, except due to ill health. RPF and EPF are same. EPF actually SPF है. जो आप EPF बोल के सुनते हैं वो SPF है, Employees Provident Fund और Statutory Provident Fund. ठीक है, ओके. तो exempt. Okay, now please don't interrupt. Huh? Let me please do the table, then you ask questions. So the amount withdrawn on termination from a recognized provident fund is exempt if the employee has provided 5 years of continuous service, at least 5 years of continuous service. मतलब वो regular 5 साल उन्होंने काम किया है. अगर बीच में कोई break हुआ तो it happened because of maybe ill health or maybe because the employer's business only had shut down for some time, or because of reasons which the employee did not control. So employee willingly, at least he has stayed for 5 years with the company. Okay, 5 years of continuous service where if he took a long break, then it may be because of a medical issue, if or maybe because employer had shut down the business, or maybe for reasons beyond his control. But otherwise, if it was within his control, then he would have worked for 5 continuous years. So if he has worked for 5 continuous years and then he wants to take the money from Provident Fund, then that withdrawal is exempt. Okay. Or if the person has not completed 5 years, but he is transferring the balance lying in his RPF account from one employer to another who also has a balance in RPF account. Okay. So he's saying that I am changing employment. I used to work for X, now I will work for Y. All right. So whatever fund we have contributed together in X RPF, that will be transferred to, the balance will be transferred. The balance will constitute employer's contribution, employee's contribution, interest on employer's contribution, interest on employee's contribution, and that balance will be transferred to the new employer. From there, I will continue. Okay. So in the event you have served 5 years of service, or you have transferred the funds to another RPF, then this is exempt. Then this is exempt. Otherwise, the maturity is taxable as regular salary. Okay. अच्छा. और URPF एंड USAF अभी तक अनरिकॉग्नाइज्ड फंड्स बहुत चुप बैठे थे, कोई भी लेग में टैक्स नहीं कर रहे थे, क्योंकि वो सब इसी बार अभी करने वाले हैं. ओके. एम्प्लॉयर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन एंड इंटरेस्ट देयरऑन कंप्लीटली टैक्सेबल अंडर द हेड सैलरीज. जो भी एम्प्लॉयर से आ रहा है वो सैलरीज में टैक्स हो रहा है. एम्प्लॉयर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन और इंटरेस्ट देयरऑन. एम्प्लॉयज कंट्रीब्यूशन तो टैक्स नहीं होता. वी ऑल हैव अग्रीड दैट इट इज एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम. उसका या तो आपको डिडक्शन मिलता है या तो कोई डिडक्शन नहीं मिलता है, लेकिन टैक्सेशन वापस नहीं होता एम्प्लॉयज कंट्रीब्यूशन का. ओके. यूआरपीएफ में भी नहीं होता भाई. वो फंड आपको अच्छा नहीं लगता है, दैट्स ओके, बट एटलीस्ट वो एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम को तो वापस टैक्स मत करिए. ओके. और इंटरेस्ट ऑन एम्प्लॉयज कंट्रीब्यूशन इज टैक्सेबल अंडर इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज, व्हिच इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द 5 हेड्स ऑफ इनकम. ओके. हमारे 5 पांडव है, 5 हेड्स ऑफ इनकम, राइट? Employee contribution less than 2.5 lakhs, then you are talking about RPF. If employee's contribution is less than 2.5 lakhs per annum, then interest taxability you only see if it is more than 9.5% of employee's contribution. But if employee's contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, then interest on employee's contribution is also taxable. Okay. How working we will do in the sum, you will understand. So right now we are dealing with the amount withdrawn on termination from unrecognized funds. Employer's contribution and interest thereon completely taxable as salary. Employee's contribution not taxable because application of income, and interest on employee's contribution taxable as income from other sources. Okay. Statutory provident fund withdraw करने पे भी exempt है. Public provident fund तो हर समय exempt है, उसका तो बात ही नहीं करेंगे हम. Okay. Public provident fund is always exempt. That entire column you can write always exempt, and 80C for employees deduction contribution under optional regime. Okay. और approved superannuation fund में कुछ conditions हैं. Generally वो भी exempt होता है with some conditions. Okay. For the benefit of too much information overdose, I have not written that much. Okay. All right. उसके बाद एनुअल मैम एसपीएफ वर्सेस पीपीएफ. एसपीएफ है स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविडेंट फंड फॉर एम्प्लॉइज, बट पब्लिक प्रोविडेंट फंड सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड भी यूज कर सकते हैं, और वो भी गवर्नमेंट का बना है बट वो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड भी यूज कर सकते हैं. तो मतलब जो सैलरी नहीं है वो भी पीपीएफ में कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं. ऑलराइट. ओके. एक्चुअली पीपीएफ सैलरीज चैप्टर का पार्ट ही नहीं है. ओनली फॉर कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव क्लैरिटी की क्या क्या फंड्स हो सकते हैं, आई हैव पुट इट ओवर हियर. इट्स नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ सैलरी चैप्टर. ओके. ऑलराइट. SPF is made under the act, so it is not a question of approved or not. It is a government fund. Okay. All right. Then annual accretion on employer's contribution. तो अगर employer's contribution is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, ठीक है, this is relevant for RPF and SP approved ऐसे superannuation fund, right? तो approved superannuation fund और RPF के लिए employer's contribution being more than 7.5 lakhs per annum is relevant. We have seen in row number 1, okay? क्योंकि वो excess taxable होता है. अगर
उससे ज्यादा है तो उसके ऊपर होता हुआ accretion भी taxable होता है. Okay, if you keep annually contributing value more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, then not only annually the value, excess value of contribution is taxable in case of RPF and approved superannuation fund, but also the annual accretion thereon, because money is growing. So that is also taxable in case of RPF and approved superannuation fund. Okay, and how do you calculate? There is a mechanism given. We will do that when we do some sums. Okay, so this is overall the different types of funds, the different legs or taxable events, and how you tax it. Okay, please keep a print of this, keep referring to it until you learn it, and please revise before going to exams. We are just taking a 5 minutes break. Okay, tech team, we are taking a 5 minutes break. People who come back early or don't want to take a break, please read this chart, try to absorb it as much as possible. After coming back, we will do some sums to understand this better. Okay, tech team. 5 minutes break, please, tech team. 5 minutes break. We will come back at 7:41. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I hope you all are back, and we were doing this chart. We were doing RPF, URPF, unrecognized superannuation fund, statutory provident fund, public provident fund, approved superannuation fund. Yes, we did so many things and different legs and how we treat them. We will not be able to remember so much together. So don't stress yourself too much. When we do some things, we will remember on our own, and some other things we will have to learn. For that, we'll have to invest some more time. Okay. So for now, let's start with the sums first. Right now, your focus should not be how to learn this. Right now, your focus should be how to understand this. Automatically, as you do some of them you will remember, and then some of the others you will have to learn eventually. Okay. Let's just do a few more things, a little bit, two more concepts, and then we'll do sums. What happens to employers' contribution to NPS account? So there is a national pension scheme account. Employers' contribution to that is also salary, and it's actually a government scheme where subscribers who can be, again, NPS is like PPF. Even self-employed people can contribute over time. Okay, so whoever is the subscriber, whoever has an NPS account can contribute, and it's a government scheme like PPF. In case of any employee subscriber of NPS account, employer can also contribute, right? That is where the thing comes in. But in case of PPF, employer could not have contributed. But in case of NPS, while it is open for self-employed people, but in case of salaried people, there is an option that employer can also contribute. If employer contributes to NPS of employee, then that is also salary. Okay. But there is a specific deduction available under Chapter 6A for employers' contribution under both the regimes. And there is a specific deduction under Chapter 6A for employees' contribution under optional regime. You will remember this, or it will be relevant for you when you do Chapter 6A. Right now, you will not understand it so much. But after you have done Chapter 6A, and then when you come to revise salaries, then it will be 100% clear to you. Okay, so there is some deduction under Chapter 6A in respect of employers' contribution under both regime, and some deduction under Chapter 6A in respect of employees' contribution only under optional regime. Okay, and then there is an Agniveer Corpus Fund also. When the Agniveer concept came up in 2022 by this government, you would have remembered that, it's actually an enrollment of the Indian youth, encouraging them to join armed forces of India as Agniveers. So what happens is that now these Agniveers are going to serve the country. They're going to join this training program for 4 years. Okay. And as part of this Agniveer scheme, the government said that we will create an Agniveer Corpus Fund. Okay. So when they created that, then fixed percentage of monthly emoluments would be contributed by the Agniveer, that means the concerned employee for this purpose, and matching amount would be contributed by the central government. So this is the Agniveer Corpus Fund, where also some amount is going from the central government and some from the Agniveer himself. Okay. So here also there is a reduction under Chapter 6A in respect of central government's contribution under both regimes, and then there is a deduction under Chapter 6A in respect of employee or Agniveer's contribution under optional regime only. So to that extent, NPS and Agniveer are similar, that employer's contribution under both regime it is eligible, but employees' contribution only under optional regime it is eligible. Okay. And even when we were doing public provident fund and all, we were doing the employees' contribution. Then unrecognized funds, all the other funds, when there is employees' contribution, then you get Chapter 6A in optional regime, in default in optional regime, and no Chapter 6A in default regime. So basically, to that extent, even the employees' contribution in these things are aligned, that you get it not under 80C under a different section, but at least you get it only under the optional regime. Okay. While employers' contribution deduction, these are very special, that even employers' contributions are given as deduction. Very, very special schemes, that's why. So for NPS and Agniveer, they want to promote this. That's why they are giving tax benefit even to employers' contribution, that too under both the regimes. So they seriously want to promote it. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's do a quick sum. Read this question. Mr. A retires from service on 31st December So there's a retirement, matlab ki somewhere I think that he's going to withdraw from his provident fund. Okay, so that termination clause you will have to check. Following are the particulars. Out of the amount received from the unrecognized provident fund. Okay, so there is an unrecognized provident fund. Unrecognized provident fund means that everything is taxable at the time of withdrawal or termination only. Okay, because earlier no tax was collected. So at that time, employer's contribution was 2,20,000, interest thereon was 50,000. Acha, you tell me, in case of unrecognized provident fund, what happens to employer's contribution and interest thereon at the time of termination or withdrawal? What happens to that? This is the easiest question that I could have asked. Come on, what happens? Not applicable.
Class lectures are uploaded on the portal before the class. Please keep a copy downloaded, okay, and refer to it during the class. No, we are talking about unrecognized provident fund. Is it taxable at the time of contribution? No. Okay, the only taxable event is at the time of termination or withdrawal, and entirely taxable at that time. So employer's contribution and interest thereon is entirely taxable as salary income at the time of withdrawal. Okay. Okay. So fine. So we got 2,20,000 plus 50, 2,70,000. So यही पे taxable है. Okay. Employees' contribution is 2,70,000. We all are aligned that application of income cannot be taxed. So employees' contribution is not taxed. Interest on employees' contribution is taxed as income from interest on employees' contribution from unrecognized provident fund is taxed as income from other sources at the time of withdrawal. So interest is 60,000. Fine. What is the taxable portion received from the URPF? We have already determined 2,70,000 is salary income and 60,000 is IFOS. Will your answer be different if the fund was RPF? Will your answer be different if the fund was RPF? Yes, it will be different. Okay, now you tell me, employer's contribution should have been taxed at the time of contribution. But what point of time are we standing at? We are standing at the time of withdrawal. So we need to judge the taxability of the withdrawal only. Okay, you know the taxation at the time of other events, but that is not the question. You have been asked what happens at the time of withdrawal. So you will tell what happens at the time of withdrawal. If it is RPF, what happens at the time of withdrawal? What did we study? What did we study for RPF? What happens at the time of withdrawal? If the person has served at least 5 years of continuous service, except due to which was maybe interrupted by medical health or other employer business shutdown or other reasons beyond control. Other than that, if he has served for 5 continuous years, or if his accumulated balance has got transferred to a different provident fund of a new employer, okay, which is also recognized, or which is an NPS. Both are very favorite schemes of the government of the income tax, right? So then they completely exempt the withdrawal, right, which was otherwise taxable fully in a unrecognized provident fund. Okay, so in this sum, didn't you see that there are 25 years of service? Isn't it more than 5 years? Yes. So more than 5 years, obviously. So his entire withdrawal from RPF should be exempt, not taxable. Yes. Okay. All right. But the question has given you so many other points, that there is a basic pay, there is a DA forming part, and there is a lump sum payment received from URPF, and there is a deposit in PPF. What to do with all this? Let's see. What to do with all this? Nothing to do. They gave you all this detail, but we didn't have to use it. It would have been relevant perhaps when we were calculating the taxability at the time of employer's contribution. Then maybe in case of RPF, we would have needed salary. And salary, 12% of salary. And salary for this purpose, basic plus DA forming part plus commission based as a fixed percentage of turnover. We would have needed all this if we were doing that, right? But here in this question, we solved A and B verbally, and we didn't have to even refer to this table. It is completely irrelevant information. Okay, I will show you the solution. Isn't this what we did? Income from salary 2,70,000, income from other sources 60, total income 3,30,000. In case of URPF, employees contribution is not eligible for deduction under 80C. This you should give a note, huh? That employees contribution is not eligible for 80C under URPF, and it's not taxable at the time of withdrawal because it has already been taxed as salary income, and this is only an application of tax paid income. And in case of Provident Fund, it's after 25 years, so it's completely exempt. Okay. Ma'am, do we need to remember exempt under which section? So generally exemptions are under section 10. Okay. Some places you may have seen proviso to section 17. Because I told you proviso means exception to general rule. So if suppose they were taxing A, B, C and they felt that okay, out of A, B, C, D, E, F should not be taxable, then they gave it as a way of proviso. That then it is not exemption. It is just that it is not even taxable. It's not covered in the scope of income at all. Okay. So that those things come by way of proviso to section 17, for example, that they are not included in the scope of taxable perquisite at all in the first place. They are carved out by way of proviso. But general exemptions, the things which are, whether it should be taxable or not, generally it's given in section 10. Okay. And then there are clauses under which different types of exemptions are dealt. Do we need to remember so much? No. Because if you see the chart, you will see 1013, 10, 11, 10, 12, HRA was 1013A. But you don't need to remember so much. Okay. There is another illustration. Okay. This is, if you can see, this person is not retired, right? Because RPF is not a terminal benefit. These things can happen in the course of employment itself. They keep happening because employer's contribution, employees' contribution, interest thereon, these things keep happening over the years. Only when the person withdraws lump sum, it becomes a terminal benefit, which you see at the time of retirement or him leaving the organization, right? But in a regular course of business, every year some amount will show up as a perquisite in a salary. Okay, so this is that kind of RPF sum where we are dealing with on without retirement on an annual basis what can be taxable. And the earlier sum that we did was a terminal benefit. That is what if it was lump sum withdrawn at the time. I mean, taxability of the lump sum amount withdrawn. Okay. All right. Here, Mr. B is working in XYZ Limited and he has given the following details. He has given basic, DA forming part, commission as fixed percentage of turnover. Turnover has also been given, bonus, gratuity. His own contribution in RPF is given. That means employee's contribution. Employer's contribution of RPF is given. Interest accrued in the RPF is given. Achha. Now you guys tell me. Employer's contribution to RPF, how much is taxable? How much is tax free? Let me put it like this. What limit is there? How much is tax free? 12% of what? 12% of what? 12% of basic. 12% or 7.5 lakhs is separate. 7.5 lakhs is a different limit. I am saying 12% of what? Of salary. What is salary? What is salary for the purpose of RPF? Cheat sheet. Basic DA forming part. Just don't say DA. Plus commission based as fixed percentage of turnover. So you tell me over here what is salary? There is a 10,000 per annum per month of basic. So 10,000 into 12. There is a DA forming part of 8,000 into 50%. That means 4,000 per month. There is a commission of 0.1% of 50 lakhs, which means whatever it is, you will calculate. Now you tell me what is the salary. What is the salary for the purpose of RPF? 1,73,000. Absolutely correct. This calculation that we did was 1,73,000. So how much is allowed? 12% of 1,73,000 is allowed. What is that amount? Who will calculate? 12% of 1,73,000 is exempt. 20,760 is exempt. Now in the sum, how have they actually contributed? How have they? What is the actual amount of contribution in the sum? 20% of what? 20% of basic. See, we cannot control how the employer wants to contribute to RPF. That is his choice. We can only control the exemption we need to give. He wants to do 20% of basic, fine. He wants to do 20% of bonus, fine. He does what he wants to. Okay. Our exemption will be my life, my rules principle. That exemption will be 12% of basic plus DA forming part plus commission as fixed percentage of turnover. Okay. So you calculate what he is contributing, which is 20% of 20% of basic. That means 20% of 1,20,000. Okay. And then you want to calculate how much of exemption you will be giving, which is just now what you calculated, the 12% amount, 20,760. Then what is the excess employer's contribution to RPF? 3,240. That is taxable. 3,240. Everybody is giving me this answer. Very good. Abhi, Kiran is asking very, very good question. Ma'am, why are you only checking 12% of salary? You only told us 7.5 lakhs in absolute terms is also a limit to check. वो क्यों नहीं check किया मैम? बिल्कुल करना चाहिए. बट आप यहाँ पे देखो सम के नंबर्स को, इनकी पूरी सैलरी 7.5 लाख से ज्यादा नहीं है ना? कुछ लोगों की सैलरी इतनी ज्यादा होती है कि 12% ऑफ दैट भी 7.5 लाख से ज्यादा होता है. उनके लिए इट इज रेलेवेंट. यही हो रहा था इन प्रैक्टिस पीपल अर्निंग हाई सैलरी, फॉर देम 12% ऑफ हाई सैलरी वाज a pinch that the income tax department was feeling. इतना कैसे छोड़ दें such a huge amount? So they felt कि एक absolute limit भी होना चाहिए. But that is for very very high income. आप समझ लो अगर किसी का employer's contribution is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, उनके लिए है वो relevant. यहाँ तो employer's contribution is 24,000, उनके लिए relevant नहीं है. Absolute limit बहुत high earning employees के लिए है. Okay? ठीक है. All right. Next. So we have plotted basic salary, DA, और DA जब आप calculation में डालेंगे ना gross salary में, you will calculate the full amount. DA forming part तो notes में calculate होता है when we are calculating exemption or taxable value or something like that, right? But in the basic calculation of salary, in the calculation of salary, you are going to consider the entire DA. So you will consider entire basic, entire DA, entire commission, bonus, whatever. Gratuity they have given you. Now you don't know भाई gratuity को exempt करे, taxable करे, क्या करे, you don't know. कुछ तो बोला नहीं. But you tell me something. Is the person retiring? Have they told you? No. So gratuity received during the course of service, what should be the treatment? Fully taxable. What should you assume when the question doesn't say that the person is retiring and you cannot see any lump sum benefit anywhere? Then what should you assume? That he is getting it as a annual benefit during the course of service. So it will be fully taxable. You give a note and fully tax it. Okay. Employer's contribution you have dealt with. In the question they had another component, interest accrued on RPF. What is the statutory limit? Interest on RPF? Any interest in excess of 9.5% of the contribution of employees' contribution and employers' contribution also. Interest more than 9.5% of employers' contribution should be taxable. ठीक है ना? 9.5% था ना RPF में. एक बार वापस आप चार्ट देख लो. 9.5% था ना interest on employers' contribution to RPF. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes. है ना? Remember, interest on employers' contribution में 2.5 lakhs का limit नहीं है. वो interest on employees' contribution पे है. In case of RPF and superannuation, approved superannuation fund. यहाँ भी क्या हो रहा था, आई टेल यू, some employees earning high salaries, they used to save taxes by voluntarily contributing more money to recognize provident fund and approved superannuation fund. They were saying ज्यादा रख लो मेरा, हम कहीं बाहर लगाएंगे हमको टैक्स देना पड़ेगा, आप ही इन्वेस्ट करो, कम से कम इसमें जो भी इंटरेस्ट आता है 9.5% तक टैक्सेबल नहीं होता। हाँ, तो इसीलिए लॉ मेकर्स ने ये लिमिट लगाया 2021 में कि if employees contribution in absolute terms is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, if you are using this as a tax free investment tool, if you have started using this as a tax free investment tool, then let me tell you, this is not tax free anymore. That's what the lawmakers did. So if employees contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs per annum, then interest on that, okay, is not tax free. It's because this was not supposed to be a tax free investment tool. Okay, so interest on that is not tax free, and you need to pay tax on interest in case of RPF and approved superannuation fund both. Okay, so what I wanted to show is कि interest on employers contribution तो 9.5% के ऊपर ही taxable होता है, उसके नीचे exempt होता है. Okay, so interest on RPF, अगर interest कितना हमारे question में कैसे अप्रूव हुआ था, question क्या था interest का, क्वेश्चन बोल रहा था इंटरेस्ट अक्रूड इन द आरपीएफ इज 13% पर एनम, मतलब 13% माइनस 9.5%, 4.5% के हिसाब से आप टैक्सेबल करेंगे। ये 13% आप किसके ऊपर कैलकुलेट करेंगे, ये 13% आप किसके ऊपर कैलकुलेट करेंगे, क्वेश्चन में क्या है, ऑलरेडी अमाउंट दिया है, ऑलरेडी अमाउंट दिया है, जहां एब्सोल्यूट देखो देखो 1 लाख नहीं 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 1 लाख कहां से आया, who found out 1 lakh, how did you find out 1 lakh? somebody found out 1 lakh, हाँ, आपने उसको 13,000 को बेस पकड़ के वैसे निकाला। तो एक्चुअली क्या होता है, somebody asked a theoretical question, academical question कि मैम ये 13% किस पे होता है, क्या है 13% of what, salary, interest, contribution, what? Actually 13% is the interest rate on the balance in the RPF. कोई भी फंड में बैलेंस पे इंटरेस्ट मिलता है ना, ये वो इंटरेस्ट है। तो आपको बैलेंस पता नहीं भी होगा सम में, आपको कैसे पता होगा, but if you are given a percentage and you are given an absolute term, so you can use it to find out, okay, which means unitary method लगाना है। अगर 13% के रेट पे 13,000 मिलता है तो 9.5% के रेट पे कितना मिलेगा, और एक्सेस टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा। अंडरस्टूड, आपको वो बेसिक मतलब जो 1 लाख आपने इनडायरेक्टली निकाला है, एक्चुअली यू मे नॉट नो, you have to find that out only to find out how much is the 9.5% of that. So without knowing that also you can directly find that if 13,000 represents 13% of something, then how much 9.5% represents, that is exempt and the balance is taxable. Okay, you got it na? 13% कितना पे किस वैल्यू पे होता है ये आपको कभी सब में शायद देगा भी नहीं, ठीक है, this is how you will calculate. If 13,000 represents 13%, then what is 9.5%? Unitary method से you calculate and take it as exemption, the rest is taxable. So your gross salary becomes, you add up all the components and you get a gross salary. Is everybody getting this answer of 2,92,740? अच्छा, एम्प्लॉइज कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन का क्या करना है आरपीएफ का, एम्प्लॉइज कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन टू आरपीएफ का तो 80C मिलता है ऑप्शनल रेजिम में, और नहीं मिलता है अंडर डिफॉल्ट रेजिम। तो कहीं आपको सब में दिया है कि कौन सा रेजिम चूज हुआ जा रहा है, अभी तक जो कंपोनेंट्स यू वर डीलिंग दे वर नॉट इवन डिफरेंट, दे वर नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ हेल्प डेस्क, हेल्प देश, यू रिमेंबर हमने हेल्प देश पढ़ा था, द डिफरेंट कंपोनेंट्स, द रिकंसिलिएशन बिटवीन द डिफॉल्ट रेजिम एंड ऑप्शनल रेजिम, ये सारे सैलरी कंपोनेंट्स डोंट फॉर्म अ पार्ट ऑफ हेल्प देश, दैट मींस दे हैव कॉमन ट्रीटमेंट अंडर बोथ रेजिम्स। तो क्वेश्चन में बोला है कि दिस पर्सन इज शिफ्टिंग आउट ऑफ डिफॉल्ट रेजिम और गोइंग फॉर ऑप्शनल रेजिम, तो फिर इनको 80C मिल जाएगा, ओके, और वो आप नोट्स में दे देंगे, क्योंकि आपको क्वेश्चन में टोटल इनकम निकालने बोला है कि ग्रॉस सैलरी, आपको क्वेश्चन में क्या निकालने बोला है, ग्रॉस सैलरी। Agar if you have been asked to calculate gross salary, will you start giving 80C deduction even if the person is eligible? No, right? Only if you are asked to give total income. ओके इनफैक्ट आपको तो स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन और भी देना है, मतलब बहुत आगे हैं आप. अगर आपको नेट सैलरी बोले तो आप पहले स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शंस देंगे सेक्शन 16 का, फिर नेट सैलरी आएगा. वो नेट सैलरीज एक्चुअली इनकम फ्रॉम सैलरीज फॉर्मिंग पार्ट ऑफ योर ओवरऑल कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ इनकम, जहाँ पे बाकी की 4 हेड्स ऑफ इनकम से भी वैल्यूज आएंगे. फिर ग्रॉस टोटल इनकम आएगा, उससे डिडक्शंस लेस होंगे, वहां पे टीसी लेस होगा, फिर टोटल इनकम आएगा. अभी बहुत दूर है. You have only been asked to calculate gross salary. Be very careful. कभी बोलता है please calculate taxable perquisite, बस उतना छोड़ दो. कभी बोलता है जैसे पिछले सम में there were so many extra details, but we completely ignored them because we were only going to calculate the perquisite value. इस सम में they told us gross salary, तो बाकी details भी we factored. कोई सम में बोलेगा net salary, तो हम चैप्टर ये सेक्शन 16 का डिडक्शन भी देंगे, स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन देंगे. अगर ऑप्शनल रेजिम में we will give 50,000, default regime में we will give 75,000. You know that this is the only case where default regime is better than optional regime. The only case. Okay. So you will give deduction and then you arrive at net salary. Then that will form part of total compute GTI along with other heads of income. Then you give deductions under chapter 60. Then you get total income, which is actually taxable income. You understood how what you are doing, how it will form part of the bigger picture. Okay. अभी एनुअल एक्रेशन एक मैंने हम लोग ने लास्ट में पॉइंट पढ़ा था कि जब employer's contribution is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum in case of RPF and approved superannuation fund, then annual accretion also should be taxable if the employer's contribution in absolute terms is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum. ठीक है, तो ये सम सिर्फ उसके ऊपर है ताकि आप फोकस कर पाए इस ट्रीटमेंट पे. This is not very popular in exams, firstly because it's a new concept, it was not there earlier. Secondly because it is very focused and for only those people whose contribution is more than employer's contribution is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum. So generally it is not that popular, but it can come as a separate sum in itself, like the one that you are seeing. Okay. All right, please read. So Mr. X is appointed as a CFO of ABC in Mumbai from 1st September and his basic salary is 6 lakhs per month. He's paid 8% of as DA and he contributes 10% of his pay and DA to RPF and company contributes same amount. Okay. All right. तो ABC Limited में है, mid of the year में appoint हुआ है. Whatever calculations you do, you be careful. It's not from 1st of April. Okay. जो पर मंथ है, इतना बड़ा अमाउंट देख के लग रहा है एनुअल है, नहीं, 6 lakhs पर मंथ है, तो यू कैलकुलेट फ्रॉम 1st September ओनली इफ यू रिक्वायर्ड. ओके. अच्छा ये 2022 का डिटेल है. ओके, बट हमारे लिए तो ईयर इन्वॉल्व है, असेसमेंट ईयर 25-26 इज आवर ईयर इन्वॉल्व. ओके, लेट्स सी हाउ वी कैन यूज इट. देन ही इज पेड 8% एज डियरनेस अलाउंस और 10% of pay matlab basic and DA he contributes to RPF. Fine. So that is employee's contribution and employer contributes same amount. So it's both 10% of basic and DA. And DA forming part or not to bola nahi hai. We have to assume something. Okay. We will try to assume it is forming part so that we can link it to the tax-free limit also of contribution. Okay. And accumulated balance in the RPF as on 1st April 23, 31st March 24 and 31st March 25 is the following respectively. Now calculate taxable value in 2 assessment years, 24-25, 25-26. Please see prior to 1st September 2022 he was a consultant and his fees was taxable under PGBP. Fine. How does that matter? I don't know. Okay, that's okay. कुछ additional information मिलता है, उसका कुछ नहीं करना. Now, how are we going to calculate this annual accretion? This is a very different type of sum. 2 assessment years, इतना पुराना detail, क्या करना है इसका? Let's see. देखो, there is a fixed mechanism of calculating. This you need to learn, okay? Because the law has given a very fixed mechanism of calculating things. If I would have taught you the mechanism directly before showing you the sum, you won't be able to understand. So I have through the sum only try to explain the mechanism to you. Please tick it, because if you want to attempt a question like this in the exam, you need to learn this. You need to know how things are done. If you don't know any bit of it, then you will not be able to arrive at the correct solution. Okay, there is not much logic involved. It's a rule given and you need to learn it. Okay, so please mark it. If you are able to see before exam, then only you will be able to attempt it in the exam. Otherwise, you will not be. Okay, and it is not very popular. It may so happen that it doesn't come, but if it comes, the question may only be on this much. Okay, so let's see. First of all, we need to calculate for assessment year 24-25. Okay, the perquisite value. What are we trying to calculate first? Then we do how we are calculating it. We have done in the slides that employer's contribution to RPF and superannuation, approved superannuation fund in excess of 7.5 lakhs per annum is taxable. And that an annual accretion in such cases is also taxable. What is accretion? If you have such a huge fund, okay, where you are contributing 7.5 lakh, more than 7.5 lakhs per annum, maybe the employee is also contributing so much, then the fund balance is really growing, it's earning interest, again growing. So accumulated balance of the fund is really growing, and your annual contribution is also growing. It's so significant that it's substantially growing. So if the excess contribution is taxed in such high value contributions, the annual gain on such contribution or the annual investment return on that contribution should also be taxed. That is the funda basically. And that's why they calculate annual accretion only in cases where the employer's contribution is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum. Okay. So basically we have to do something to calculate the fund balance to find out how annually that value is growing. Okay, that is what we are trying to do. Let's see how. So firstly, we are going to take the perquisite value, see PC. Okay, just refer the left hand side table. There is a PC. What is PC? PC is ABC Limited. That means employer's contribution in excess of 7.5 lakhs during the previous year 23-24, for which assessment year 24-25 is relevant. Okay, that means excess contribution. In short, employer's excess contribution. Okay, here employer's contribution in the sum is 7,77,600. Okay, so if it is 7,77,600, then the excess value over 7.5 lakhs is 27,600. Okay, so just plot that. That is equal to PC. PC is excess employer's contribution, 27,600. Okay, then we have PC1. PC1 means employer's contribution to RPF in previous year 22-23. In the earlier previous year. So 23-24 we have plotted. But 22-23, there is, and 20-21 or 21-22, that is nil. Either the contribution is less than 7.5 lakhs or nil. Because if you see in the sum, the person joined on 1st September 2022. So in previous year 22-23, he was in the organization for September, October, November, December, January, February, March. He was in the organization for 7 months. Okay. If he was in the organization for 7 months, then employer's contribution would have worked out to less than 7.5 lakhs. Okay. So again, this is not relevant. You don't prorate the limit. कि 7.5 lakhs per annum है तो 7 months के लिए limit क्या होता? Don't prorate the limit. Limit will stay at 7.5 lakhs. Okay. Employer's contribution in actual terms is less than 7.5 lakhs because person joined midway. And you must have recalled कि एक और line लिखा था सामने. इससे पहले वो आदमी PGBP करता था अपना consultancy business, right? How was that relevant? Now connect the dots. They were trying to tell you that he was not earning any contribution from employer in the earlier years. Okay, that suggests that employer's contribution in the earlier years was zero because he was not a salaried employee at all. Okay, so PC1 is actually the contribution in excess of 7.5 lakhs in the earlier year. Okay. So here in this case, it is going to be nil because there was no excess contribution in the earlier year. Okay. Then we come to TP1. Okay. What is TP1? What is TP1? TP1 is actually taxable perquisite for previous year 23-24. Okay. Ma'am, why was it not used in the last slide? See, we are doing this sum in two parts. One we are doing for assessment year 24-25. One we are doing for assessment year 25-26. Okay. Now this was a new requirement. It came in this year. Therefore, it has got no previous year associated with it. TP1 is taxable perquisite in earlier year. Okay. TP1 is taxable perquisite in earlier year. But because this is the first year for this case, it is a new amendment. FY 23-24 is the first case. So TP1 is 0 because earlier year was not covered by the amendment. Okay. TP1 is taxable perquisite in earlier year, or in case of PY 23-24, there is no earlier year. This is the first year. So this is 0. Okay. Then is R. R is I by F average. Okay, R is I by F average. So before finding R, we need to know what is I and what is F average. Okay, so I is equal to RPF balance as on 31st March 24. That means I is equal to RPF balance as on the last day of this previous year. This previous year is 23-24. 31st March 24 is last day. So RPF balance on last day of previous year, 31st March 24, is equal to minus employees and employers contribution during 23-24 minus RPF balance as on 1st April 23. What are we trying to do here? We are trying to do last day's balance minus contributions during the year minus opening balance. Okay, closing balance minus contributions during the year minus opening balance. Just tell me out of logic. There is a fund. I have a closing balance. It's an interest growing fund. Ma'am, what's all this? Hold on. Just first try to understand each of the terms. Okay. What do each of the terms mean? This is extremely typical. That's why I said you need to learn it. Okay. There is not too much logic that I can help you to remember. Just try to first understand the terms like I'm telling you. Okay. Now tell me if there is a fund which invests some money somewhere and grows in interest all the time. Okay. And mathematically give me this answer. If I give you closing balance, if I give you opening balance, and there are contributions to the principal amount during the year, and I tell you that closing balance minus opening balance minus contributions during the year, then you tell me what will be the balance? Interest earned during the year. Absolutely. This is a mathematical question. Yes. So I denotes interest earned during previous year 23-24. For that, we have used closing balance of the fund on March 24 minus opening balance of the fund on March 23 and minus employer and employees contributions during the year in principal amount. The difference will give us interest during the year 23-24, which is called I. Okay. So you at least understood what I is. Just park it. Okay. All right. Now F average. What is F average? F average is balance to the credit of RPF as on 1st April of the year, which is 1st April 23, plus balance as on 31st March 24, which means closing balance, divided by 2. We are calculating average balance. We are calculating average balance. F average. Opening balance plus closing balance divided by 2. Is it a brainer? Is it a very complicated thing? F average, is it complicated? F average you understood? Please try to understand each component. Then we will fit them into a formula. Then we will understand what were we calculating. ये थोड़ा उल्टा चलेगा. Okay. We are first trying to calculate it and then understand what we are going to do with it. Okay. चलो. तो F average is actually opening balance plus closing balance divided by 2. It is average balance. That's why we are calling it F average. Okay. So we have found out I, which is interest during the year. We have found out F average, which is average balance. Okay. Now, what is R? Rate of interest. Interest in absolute terms during the year I divided by average balance of the fund, F average, will give you roughly an R or rate of interest. Is it okay? Is it making sense? Ma'am, zoom kariye. Is it making sense? We calculated I, which is interest during the year. We calculated F average, which is average balance during the year. And if we do I by F average, we are actually getting a tentative rate of interest on this balance at which this balance is growing. Okay. So R is equal to I by F average. Are we all okay with that? एक बार numbers में मत जाओ, एक बार try to understand the concept. Okay. R is equal to I by F average. Okay. अब हम ये सब का करेंगे क्या? हमने पीसी निकाला मतलब एक्सेस कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ द एम्प्लॉयर ड्यूरिंग द ईयर. हमने PC1 निकाला मतलब एक्सेस कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ द एम्प्लॉयर इन द लास्ट ईयर. हमने TP1 निकाला माने टैक्सेबल परक्विजिट वैल्यू इन द लास्ट ईयर. हमने R निकाला मतलब रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. उसके लिए हमने I यूज किया मतलब इंटरेस्ट ड्यूरिंग द ईयर व्हिच इज इक्वल टू क्लोजिंग बैलेंस माइनस ओपनिंग बैलेंस माइनस कंट्रीब्यूशंस ड्यूरिंग द ईयर. देन हमने F एवरेज निकाला व्हिच इज एक्चुअली एवरेज बैलेंस मतलब closing balance plus opening balance divided by 2. Okay, we found each of these elements. Now how will we put them into a formula? See, वन में जो कैलकुलेटेड है वो है टैक्सेबल वैल्यू ऑफ एक्सेस एम्प्लॉयर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन. वो तो बहुत सिंपल है. अब एब्सोल्यूट टर्म्स में देखेंगे TP1 is taxable perquisite during the last year. Okay. And remember, FY23-24 is the first year for this whole calculation because उसके पहले ये law नहीं था. Okay, so for FY23-24, whenever you are calculating, there will be no TP1. But when you calculate for FY24-25, which is your year, your assessment year is 25-26, na? Your previous year is 24-25. When you calculate for that, you will get one TP1, which will actually come from this. Basically, this output will go into TP1 for the next year. Okay. So, point number 1 where you are trying to calculate, ma'am, can you take this question in the next session? I will repeat this question in the next session. Okay. But first, because we have started, let's finish it. We will just finish it. It's now you have understood PC1, TP1, R, I, F average, everything. We will just put them into a formula. Don't worry at all. Okay. All right. So perquisite value, point number 1, we are dealing with what is the taxable value of excess employer's contribution. Now you know that in absolute terms, it is more than 7.5 lakhs per annum. So here it is a case of 7,77,600 minus 7.5 lakhs, 27,600 is the taxable value of excess employer's contribution. Now in point number 2, we are calculating the annual accretion on excess contribution. The annual accretion on excess contribution. Lawmakers are trying to say that if you contribute so heavy sums to Provident Fund, okay, then you are actually annually also the fund is growing substantially. Basically, we are trying to estimate the interest income. Interest, accretion means growth. Accretion means return. Okay. If you contribute such high sums every year to a fund, then that fund will also grow well. It will give you good return. And why will we leave that? Even that should be taxable as salary because it is ultimately stemming from the same employer-employee relationship. Okay. So that we are calculating in point number 2. उसके लिए हमने इतना सब पढ़ा. PC by 2 माने excess employers contribution divided by 2. into R, which is the rate of interest that you calculated, plus PC1, that means last year's excess contribution, plus TP1, that means last year's taxable perquisite. So PC1 plus TP1, if you add them up into R again, you again apply the rate of interest on that. Okay, that is how you will come to the perquisite value of annual accretion on excess contribution. This formula cannot be, I cannot explain through logic. You need to remember this. I told you in the beginning. Okay, this formula needs to be remembered. And not only this, interest on the aggregate will also of contributions will also be taxable. Interest on employer's contribution in case of RPF is taxable. Okay, because not only employees contribution also. So interest on employees contribution also over here is employees contribution is more than 2.5 lakhs. So even that is going to be taxable. Interest on that will also be taxable because employees contribution is also more than 2.5 lakhs. Okay. Now they asked us to do this calculation in the next year also. I know that you all have not understood. Please, let's apply this as a revision for the next year. Then in the next class, I will do this again. Okay. So in the next year, what is PC? In the next year, PC is excess contribution to 7.5 lakhs. Why? Apna 27,600. What is PC1? Excess contribution in the last year, in the last 3 years. So last year ka value we have now, we just calculated in the last slide. Again, you put it as 27,600. TP1 is taxable perquisite in the last year. You found out the value 1532 in the last slide. You just take it over here. R is I by F average. Pehle nikalte hain I is closing balance minus opening contributions during the year minus opening balance. वो निकाल दो तो आ जाएगा I. F average is average balance, which is closing balance plus opening balance by 2. वो निकाल लो वो आ जाएगा F average. I by F average करेंगे आ जाएगा R. What are we going to do with this? So first we calculate excess contribution taxability, which is anything more than 7.5 lakhs. So 777,600 minus 7.5 lakhs. And then we do accretion calculation, which is PC by 2 into R plus PC1 plus TP1 into R. That is actually the accretion. Now let me give you one small, and interests also are taxable because here employees contribution is also more than 2.5 lakhs. Achha, we will do this again in the next class. But if you find it too technical, just one suggestion. Okay, if you find that you don't have time also in the exam and you don't even remember the formula or whatever it is, at least attempt part number 1. That means it is no-brainer to calculate excess contribution taxability. Okay, employer's contribution at least you will be able to find out. Anything excess 7.5 lakhs per annum, that is taxable. There is step marks for that also. Please calculate that because it is a no-brainer. Okay. When the second question comes that calculate annual accretion on the excess contribution, that if you find it technical, you leave, you do whatever. But at least attempt the part where you have been asked to give the excess employer's contribution, because there you just need to subtract 7.5 lakhs and derive the amount. It is so simple. Don't leave that. At least get that done. Okay. Chalo, theek hai. Next class we will continue. For next class, this slide that you are seeing, profits in lieu of salary, it is nothing but a repetition of what you have already seen in other cases. Okay. This is nothing but things that you have already learned. I am just grouping them in one head, which is profits in lieu of salary. You will not be asked in the exam, please define profits in lieu of salary. So as such, you don't need to remember this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is just for you to understand it better that what is profits in lieu of salary. Okay, we have done these things in other parts earlier. They have just been put together under this bracket. Okay, salaries का एक और session है ना, अभी next class करेंगे ना. तो ये वाला जो slide है ना, you just have to read it. मतलब nothing also, like you need not learn it also. Just read it to get a understanding that things that you have done in the earlier slides, how they form part of profits in lieu of salary. Okay, so that if somebody asks you, at least you can give 1 or 2 examples out of this. Okay, so just read this. It's not very important from exam perspective. All right. And then there was this relief under section 89. This is also a specific calculation. Fact that you all have, I mean, annual accretion mein hi sab behal ho raha hai. So I'm not introducing this topic to you. Next class we will do it. Try to read it a little before coming to the next class, because next class we should be solving sums which are more important than this. Okay. So we will need to solve some sums on the more frequently asked points of perquisites and allowances and things like that. Though we have done illustrations on everything individually, but what happens when they are put together? It will be a good practice session. So at least these concepts like annual accretions और रिलीफ अंडर सेक्शन 89 थोड़ा सा आप पढ़ के आना नेक्स्ट क्लास में, नहीं तो फिर अर्थक्वेक आ जाएगा दिमाग में. हाँ, if you read it a little beforehand, then what happens is I can explain only the issues. But if you are absolutely blank, then I need to explain the whole thing from scratch, which is what I should do also. But in the interest of time, okay, I would suggest if you can read this a little and come. Okay, what is relief under section 89 actually is कि आपका taxable event अगर you know दो अलग अलग मतलब taxable event salary में तो you know it is due or receipt basis whichever is earlier, पर अगर उन दोनों taxable events में बहुत ज्यादा ही change of tax rate हो गया, okay, that you have paid salary on advance basis and actually it has accrued to you later, and there is a substantial change in tax rate between the year in which you paid tax on receipt basis and the year when it has become due, then law is trying to compensate you for the change in rate. That is the mechanism of relief under 89. मतलब अगर कुछ निकलेगा तो it will be a benefit that will flow or else no. Now ये भी एक बहुत typical mechanism है, ये step 1 2 3 4 5 करेंगे तब जाके निकलेगा, ठीक है, ये भी याद करना पड़ता है. तो ये जो एनुअल अक्रेशन है और रिलीफ अंडर सेक्शन 89 है, या तो ये कुछ नहीं आएगा या तो ये एग्जाम में आएगा ही नहीं. इफ इट कम्स, it may so happen that sums are only based on this because it is very difficult to merge them with a regular flow of sums. Okay, so that is how the nature is. Either matlab most of the times they are not asked at all, but if it comes, then you can attempt it only if you know it. There is no way of guessing these things. It is more than logic, you can see, right? So you can take a considered call whether before exams you want to study it or you don't want to study it, because if you don't revise it, it is difficult to retain it in the exam and apply it. Okay, not that important from or regular or popular from exam perspective. Okay, that is what I can tell you for relief under section 89 as well as for annual accretion. Next class, strategically, we will not start with these two things, because otherwise now we are not able, we are only getting looped in these things which may not even come in the exams. Next class we will start with practice solutions only. We will actually solve sums. Okay, and these two concepts we will do at the end of the class, right? Here, even if you don't understand, you need to learn up the formula. So if you read the formula again, it will help you learn. I would suggest you please read the formula of relief under section 89 and annual accretion at home. And in the next class, please ask your doubts that after reading what you don't understand. Okay, it will be easy, because me introducing all this and then you getting confused and then we not being able to practice any sums will not make any sense. Okay, please read this, try to understand. If you don't understand, you ask me questions. There are questions also given, there are answers also given, so you can try to apply it also if you've understood or not. Okay, still if you don't understand, you please ask me in the next class. But in the next class we will start with practice solutions only. For your homework, what you have to do is you need to do this homework on equity shares, homework number 6. You need to do homework number 8 on funds. You need to do homework number 9. These are some rent-free accommodation, car, and good sums. You will like to do this. Very exciting. Okay, you need to do the relief under section 89. You need to read that. You need to solve the illustration also, which is given. Illustration 17. Okay, you need to solve and try to apply relief under 89, and you need to read annual accretion solution again for assessment year 24-25 and for assessment year 25-26 both. Okay, please read it again. This is your homework. In the next class, we will do more sums. Okay.
Thank you, Shreya, for this wonderful session.
Thank you.
Student, I hope you understand whatever the ma'am has given you as a homework. But as I can see today, one of the most important is regarding the topic is Provident Fund, the contribution to Provident Fund. I guess you more, all have seen the employer contribution, employee contribution, that there is a percentage limit, then there is another limit of 2,50,000 and 7,50,000. There so many limits are there in just one provision of contribution to Provident Fund. So I just want a volunteer, if anyone from the participant want to explain whatever they have understood regarding the limitation, regarding the exemption and limitation and perquisite in the combined regarding this contribution to Provident Fund, whether it's a employee Provident Fund or employer Provident Fund. If any student want to summarize it, otherwise I will definitely summarize it. But I just want, if any one of you has understood it properly and want to explain, so that it can boost your confidence also to explain to the other students also, then it would be better. So I just need volunteer. Anyone who want to explain this contribution to recognized provident fund, basically, because in that only there is a limitation of employer and employee contribution. Yeah, yes, Sunil, I'll just unmute you and then you can explain. Technical team, please unmute Sunil Kumar. Sunil, do you want to explain? Okay, Miss P, you can see and explain. There is no problem, but I just want to combine the explanation for employer contribution and employee contribution, inclusive of all the percentage and every limit. So if you can explain, then yeah, you can explain.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'll just see. I'll just refer to my notes and explain, ma'am,
Yeah,
since
sure,
I've
no
not
issue.
memorized.
No issue, no issue.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so first, employer's contribution. In the case of recognized provident fund, the amount that will be taxable is excess of 12% of salary or excess of 7.5 lakhs per annum. It will be taxable. Here, salary will. Uh,
Yes, come on.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, salary here will be basic plus DA forming part plus commission as fixed percentage of turnover. And then in unrecognized provident fund, it will not be taxable now, ma'am, because the taxable event will take place at the time of withdrawal. And then for statutory provident fund, fully exempt, and public provident fund also, like there is no facility for the employer to contribute, so it will not be applicable here. And in case of approved superannuation fund also, excess of 7.5 lakhs will be taxable, ma'am.
Very good. So
Then
in case of RPF and approved superannuation fund, in case of RPF, you have to check the two limits. First, you have to see whether it's in excess of 12% or not. Suppose it is not in excess of 12%, then you just don't need to leave there. You have to check whether it's exceeding 7.5 lakh per annum or not, including of your employer NPS contribution as well as approved superannuation fund. So this 7.5 lakh limit is for all, for NPS, RPF and superannuation fund. Okay, this is now that next, just explain employer interest on employer contribution. Just go by the sequence. Interest on employer contribution.
Okay, ma'am. And interest on employees' contribution, only in the case of RPF, excess of 9.5% per annum will be taxable. Up to 9.5% will be exempt, ma'am. And in case of unrecognized provident fund, the taxable event is not now, it will take place later. And in case of statutory provident fund, it is fully exempt. Public provident fund, since employer is not going to contribute anything, it will not be applicable. And approved superannuation fund also, it will be exempt, ma'am.
Okay.
Uh, should I do employees contribution?
I'm just asking, suppose I'm just given in a situation, suppose employer contribution is not in excess of 12%, but it is in excess of 7.5 lakh per month, per annum.
Employer's contribution.
Yeah, employer's
Then,
contribution, I'm saying suppose it's 8.5 lakhs
the excess, that is 1 lakh, will be taxable.
as a perquisite, right?
Yes.
Then in that 1 lakh, the excess 9.5% condition will not be available. That will not, exemption will not be available on like 1 lakh. The interest which is on 1 lakh, that will be taxable as perquisite. Here, that time 9.5% excess, exemption would not be available. Because
I can't understand.
no, two things are there. Suppose there's an employer contribution. I'm saying it's 4 lakh. So the first condition is satisfied that it is not exceeding 7.5 lakhs per annum.
Yes.
Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
But you have to see the second condition, whether it's in excess of 12% or not.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. If it is in excess of 12%, then whatever the excess
Taxable.
part, that will be taxable.
Yes.
Okay. That thing is over. Then you see the interest part. Interest on employer contribution up to 9.5% is exempt. Over and excess above, that will be taxable.
Yes.
Okay. But when the employer contribution is taxable because of the perquisite valuation rules, because of perquisite, because of in excess of 7.5 lakhs, then you that point of time you don't need to see this 9.5% for that excess interest portion.
Okay. So that excess of 12% of salary, we won't apply.
Yeah, just suppose I am giving example that your employer contribution is 8.5 lakh per annum.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
and the interest on employer contribution, I am saying ki it's 8%.
Okay.
So you will say ki 1 lakh is taxable as perquisite, your employer contribution.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and you will say ki interest on employer contribution, since it is 8.5%, the whole interest is exempt.
Yes.
But no, whole interest will not be taxable. Interest on up to 7.5 lakh, that will be taxable. On that above 1 lakh, na, that interest will be taxable as perquisite.
Okay.
So
Okay.
two
So
things
interest on that
simultaneously
1
you have
lakh.
to see.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Now we just move to the employee contribution.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Employees. Yes, ma'am. So employees contribution, it is an application of income. So it will be like taxed as salary itself, but then deduction will be available. So in case of RPF, SPF, PPF, and approved superannuation, in case of optional regime, we have deduction in 80C, but in case of default regime, there is no deduction. And in case of unrecognized provident fund, also no deduction.
Correct.
And then interest on employees contribution. So in case of recognized provident fund, if the interest rate is exceeding 9.5% per annum, or if the employee's contribution is beyond 2.5 lakhs, then the interest will be taxable, ma'am. And in case of statutory provident fund, there is only one condition, which is if his contribution is exceeding 2.5 lakhs, then the interest will be taxable. And in other cases, it won't be taxable, ma'am. Like only in case of unrecognized provident fund, the taxable event will take place later.
Very good. So as you summarize, there are two limits. 7.5 limit is for employer contribution, and for employee contribution, it's 2.5 lakh. Generally, what happened is students get confused about the limits. So you have to see separately. For employer contribution, separate limit is there, separate conditions are there. For employee contribution students, separate limit are there, separate conditions are there. So you have to consider both in a different situation. First, deal with one employer or employee contribution, then deal with the employer or the second condition.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
very good, Miss P. You have explained very well the provisions.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
So I hope it is clear for to all the students what Miss P and what your ma'am has teach you in this class, because this is the something which is very important in the class, because so many limits are there. You have to see 12%, 7.5 lakhs, then 9.5%. Separate limits are there. One is taxable as perquisite, some other is taxable as a your salary and profit in lieu of salary. Then interest के लिए section 10-12 में you are getting the exemption, 10-11 and 10-13 में. So there too many conditions are there. So yeah, please revise this chart and solve the question which ma'am has taken in the class. In case you have any doubt or you have not understood that perquisite valuation rules, na, that formula is given, if you apply your mind, na, you will understand how this formula has derived. Because what is happening, in excess of 7.5 lakh per annum, the interest portion is taxable as a perquisite. Then in the next year, interest on interest is taxable. So in the earlier previous year, suppose you have exceeded employer contribution from 7.5 lakh, then in that additional contribution, interest will be taxable. Then in the current year, if it is in excess of 7.5 lakh, then interest will be taxable. In the earlier previous year, whatever the interest you have earned on that excess money, interest on that interest will also be taxable. So if you try to understand the formula, na, just take your time, try to understand that formula. You will understand how it is derived, and you will learn in a better sense. So whatever the ma'am has given you as a homework, please students, just do your homework, because ma'am is there for you, just to guide you, to take you a query. If you do your homework properly, then definitely it will add to your value, and it will definitely, you will be more confident in solving the problems. And you will understand where are the areas you are lacking, and you can clear your doubt with ma'am. So do your homework properly and participate more and more in the class. And definitely students, after the class, please give your feedback also, so that if in any case we need an improvement, then we can do so. It's okay, Sunil, no issue. So Shreya, we can, I guess, conclude the session, and we will be meeting students day after tomorrow at the same time, 6:30, with the last class for salary.
Yes. Okay. So thank you. Thank you. Please do revise. Please do the homework as suggested. It will help you to take it, better, absorb things better in the next class. When we apply those things in the bigger scheme of things, when we do different sums with more than 5-6 adjustments, then it will help to bring all your knowledge together, and you will really feel confident at the end of that class. So, but please study, revise, and come. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, students.
Thank you. Yes, okay.